It says we're live. Oh, that's amazing. Well, I've done webinars before and I've done live events before, but I never did a live event with a webinar before, a webcast as we'll call it. Anyway, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kerry Lutz, founder of the Financial Survival Network, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Any listeners out there? All right. Hey, well, there's 3 of you. Great. So anyway, I got a call from Andy Hoffman, I guess about a month and a half ago, and 2 months ago, said, hey, we're doing a road show, and we'd really love for you to help host it and help get people informed about it in Florida. So me being a recently relocated Floridian 3.5 years ago, I said, hey, sure, I'd love to. Andy and I go way back here. He's been on the podcast almost since the beginning of when I started it, and when he started working with Miles Franklin. And hey, it's really great. Thank you all for coming. So, hey, where are we now? Like our show, we're always talking about, it's all about next. It's all about what's next. So what's next? That's what we're here to talk about. And I think you need to have a really good appreciation of what really happened before until you can hazard a guess at what's going to happen next. So my own personal journey into this never land of sound money and basically hard assets and distrust of the government kind of started early. My father, he'd been a pilot in World War II and basically came to totally despise the government. If you ever saw the movie Catch-22, they keep telling the guy, hey, just fly 20 missions and you get to go home. And then he's volunteering for that 20th mission. They say, sorry, it went up to 30. And then he's about to do the 30th. No, sorry, it's 40. Well, my father, they pulled that on. And being the master mechanic, he would do one of 2 things. He'd either inspect the plane and say, this thing's not fit to fly. I'm not flying it until you get me an airworthy plane, which was practically impossible to do. Or if they managed to give him an airworthy plane, he would take it out to the end of the runway and figured out how to blow out an engine. So this went on for months. Finally, they couldn't decide whether to promote him, court-martial him, or send him home. They sent him home, and my father and the U.S. government gladly parted company. You know, I won't get into all the nitty-gritty, how it ruined his health and everything else, but from that moment on, my father hated governmental authority, anything to do with the government, wanted no part of it. And so I was raised in an environment of complete and total distrust of Uncle Sam. Like, yeah, he wants to do this for you. Why does he want to do it? And what does he want back? And then I get to college, and I was still somehow liberal, but you know, just not trusting the government. And I saw a special PBS, Free to Choose, with we're talking about like the greatest monetarist of all times, Milton Friedman and his wife. And all of a sudden it dawned on me the light of free markets, the light of the government not controlling you, telling you what to do, just freedom. And that when people are freest, they seem to prosper most. And then I learned about Austrian economics. I went to Pace University, had an amazing business library, and in a dark, dank, dusty corner of the library was the collection of about 20 books on Austrian economics. So that started the search. So I've been a devotee of the Austrian School of Economics for about 38 years. And fast forward, everything's going great. I'm thinking, well, maybe it doesn't matter if you print money. Maybe the government, maybe they really are, things are okay, things are working out. And then the crash of '08 hits. And really I saw it happening in '06 with the real estate bust in Vegas. And I said, oh, this is it. This is exactly what the Austrians have been talking about. the boom-bust cycle on steroids, and time to get out of what I was doing, an attorney doing distressed asset investing. Got out of that in '08 and stumbled about and somehow decided, hey, I'll do a podcast. How hard can it really be? Right? If you ever watch the show Top Gear on BBC, you know when the host Jeremy Clarkson says, how hard can it be to build an amphibious vehicle to cross the English Channel from a regular car? You know you're in trouble. So it's been a journey, it's been a voyage, it's been 5 years, but met some really incredible people along the way, both colleagues like Andy Schectman and Andy Hoffman, who we've been having our weekly conversation, seems like forever now, 4.5 years, and many listeners out there who have become personal friends. It's been the most incredible journey of my life. Not in it for the money. It'd be nice to have some, I won't say it wouldn't, for sure, but there's so much going on. There's so many things happening. We're in an era of incredible change, transition, and none of us really knows what really is going to happen next. We can guess, we can predict, we can do our best, but really the future is always uncertain, as I think John Maynard Keynes said, and it hasn't changed any. It's just as uncertain now as it was then. So on that note, I want to introduce Andy Schectman, Andy Hoffman, the guys from Miles Franklin who are making this all possible. And really, it's just been so great getting to know these guys, being a customer of Miles Franklin, of seeing what they stand for. And Andy is like a real New Yorker like me. He just never stops working. Just when you think Andy's done for the day, in comes his daily newsletter. If you're not getting it, you definitely should be getting it. His newsletter comes in, a new audio blog comes in, a new interview comes in, and people for years, probably the mainstream, say this guy is really a flake, a hardworking flake, but a flake nonetheless. But now, all of a sudden, since the end of last year, beginning of this year, and what's been happening, all of a sudden, Andy is looking pretty darn smart. Surprise, and I always knew it, but this is what the machine does. It marginalizes out-of-the-box thinkers. It demonizes you, or if you're really a potential threat, it'll ignore you like you don't exist until it has a reason to do something else. So Andy started this thing on Wall Street, and it was a journey for him as well. Andy, was an oil analyst, went all over the world, looking at oil companies, and something clicked at some point. I'll let him share that with you, as well as Andy Schectman has been in this business through thick and thin again. And hey, they haven't given up, and neither should you. Change, well, it's part of life. We all have to deal with it, and we all have to make our way. And the more open your mind is, the more prepared you are to see what's really happening, or as best as any of us can really grasp reality. That's the best we can do. Plan if you can, plan if you must, and hope for the best. On that note, Andy, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to be here and do this with you. Thanks.
So I was told I kind of have to stand behind this computer because there's people online watching this, so I'll try to move back and forth, but that's why I'm hiding behind the computer a little bit. I'm Andy Schectman. I am the president and co-founder, owner of Miles Franklin. A couple ground rules I would like to get across. First and foremost, ask anything you'd like. No questions are out of bounds. I've been doing this 27 years, and from an industry perspective, I can answer anything. Andy Hoffman is as smart as it gets when it comes to economics and things surrounding this industry. There's not much he can't answer. Between the two of us, we ought to be able to get, or at least give a good shot at just about any question you ask. We've been doing a lot of these, and I like to tell people right from the get-go, if you have to get up and cruise, you will not hurt our feelings. These have a habit of going long. Most of our shows have gone 3 or 4 hours, and it gets old. So if you have to go, feel free to go, and that's okay. Before I pass it on to Andy to introduce himself, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about me and my company. It's important you know from whom you're hearing this from. My father and I started this company together in 1989. We're the kind of the American dream, so to speak. Miles is my father's middle name. Franklin was his best friend's middle name, who loaned us $60,000 to start our company. My parents sold their life insurance policies. We come from nothing, absolutely nothing. We started helping about 35 people, family, friends, and acquaintances manage their money. And recently we just eclipsed $5 billion in sales, 27 years later. I say that to you because, well, there are a few reasons, which I'll get to in a moment. But most importantly, I'm proud of the fact that in $5 billion in sales, in 27 years of starting from nothing, having no idea what we were doing, we have never aggravated someone even enough to file a complaint. We have no complaints anywhere. Search it, go online, Google. 5 billion in sales, 27 years in business, and not one material complaint. We're one of only 27 companies in the world on the United States Mint website. Very, very proud of that. Largely in part to Joel Kravitz, who is here to my left, my oldest friend since elementary school. Joel runs our Florida office here in Delray Beach. He was instrumental in building our Brinks Montreal program, which largely got us on the US Mint webpage. There's 27 of us in the world who the US Mint says is eligible to deal directly with them, and it's a very difficult thing to do. There are 7 primary distributors that have been doing this since 1986, and each year they have the right to nominate one authorized reseller. And since there's only 27, and this has been going on for many, many years, it's not something they do all the time. We take that very seriously. I say these things to you, not for accolade or applause, not to pat myself on the back, but for one reason. This is a federally non-regulated industry. And over the last 3 years, many people have found out the hard way what that's all about. 3 years ago, the cheapest company in America, Hoffman, everyone said to me, Andy, why can't you compete with Hoffman? They would call me and say, I want to spend $1 million, but can you compete with Hoffman? I'd say, I'm sorry, I can't. He bought from the same people we did. I knew where he was getting it. He was selling it at my cost. in this industry, you will regret it. Think about any business that's been around for 27 years and done all that business and never pissed off someone just enough to file a nasty remark on Google. We don't have one. We're very proud of it. Built our business by working with people like Kerry, by working with people like Rick Rule, those of you who own mining shares and have purchased them through Global Sprott. I'm sure many of you know his name. Rick Rule is the preeminent name in that industry. Their parent company, Sprott, sells gold. Guess who Rick's company writes all his gold through? My company. Because he knows we treat them like family, he knows we do as we say, he knows we don't screw people. And if price is all that you're concerned about, you'll never realize how important what I am saying to you is until you, too, get screwed. And I hope that never happens. And excuse me for my language, but it's important to really convey this point. Because for some reason, people in this industry only focus on price. Yeah, but it's an ounce is an ounce is an ounce. Yes, it's true, an ounce is an ounce is an ounce. Until it's in your possession, that's not true. My business was founded on education. Writing a newsletter for a very long time. That's why we associate ourselves with the best. Several years ago, I lose track how many years ago it was now, 5. We read Andy Hoffman in GATA. By the way, for those of you who don't know GATA, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, if you own gold, you owe Bill Murphy and Chris Powell, the founders of GATA, a debt of gratitude. All of us. I say that in just about every speech I give, as they have tirelessly shown a light upon the manipulation of the gold market, something we should all talk about. Because really it's the crux to understanding what the hell's going on. If you don't understand gold manipulation, the reasons behind it, how it has evolved and where it's gone to, you're missing the boat entirely. But there was this guy, ranting Andy Hoffman, that we would read and promote in our newsletter. And I was at a show speaking in Vancouver. A guy comes up to me and he says, you know, you quote my neighbor all the time. I said, I do. He says, yeah, his name is Andy Hoffman. I said, oh, really? It's his neighbor. Well, one thing led to another. Father and I got on an airplane, well, we called Andy, got on an airplane, flew out to Colorado, played a round of golf, and by the end of the round of golf, Andy was working with us. Andy is the hardest working person I know, the most well-read, brightest human being on the planet. I say that to you, and I am dead serious. And I love him like a brother. He is right, wrong, or indifferent, 100% invested in what he says. Andy, myself, my father are 100% invested in gold. Call us naive, call us foolish, call us absolutely anything but the poster child for Finance 101, but we believe in what we say. 100% we believe in what we say. If you look at my business card that is floating around, we did $300 million in business last year, okay? And on my business card that all of you have access to is my cell phone number. Show me another company where a president of a precious metals company takes phone calls on a Sunday evening at 8 o'clock. We are accessible, we are accountable, we are very proud of our reputation, the services that we provide, people we associate ourselves with, and the programs that we've spearheaded. With that being said, I look very forward to answering your questions tonight. I'm very grateful that you took the time to come here and to be here, and those of you listening online, very glad that you're here too. So without any further ado, I will introduce you to the most well-read, hardest working person I know, Andy Hoffman, and we'll look forward to answer your questions.
I can start with that accountable. Thank you. Two very good introductions that I'll have to live up to. I think it's real funny that you talk about gold company dealers doing small things and going to jail. Not a single Wall Street person has gone to jail for what's happened any time from 2009. But I do think that's going to change in time because there's a sea change in perception that's going on because of people like Bill Murphy and Chris Powell and Kerry Lutz, for that matter, in shining the light of truth. And thank God for the internet and the fact that people all over the world, including all the people listening in the various countries to this webcast, are finally starting to see what we saw long ago. I do want to first thank Kerry for hosting this, and not just hosting, doing an incredible amount of tech work. His assistant, Melissa Knight, is over there. She's helped out a lot too. And all the people that listen to the Financial Survival Network, I thank you for listening to all of our podcasts. As Kerry said, like myself, we're both New Yorkers. Like myself, we both left the mainstream to do things we truly believe are helping the common good. And then last but not least, of course, Andy Schectman, my boss, who's more like my twin with the same age, the same name. Actually, my father, David, is here in the back. He's never seen me speak before. His father's David, and we're both lefties, skiers, golfers, you name it. We have all the same interests. And there's a reason why we came together. And it's real nice that we've been able to come around the country and do these kind of speeches, which we've never been able to do in the 4 or 5 years I've been here, because gold was always going down. But all of a sudden, it's going up and we're getting a lot more interest. So I appreciate everyone coming out, listening to what we have to say. For those that don't know me, let me get this here. People on the internet, because I'm guessing most people Okay, I'll just go briefly because I know there's a lot of questions to be asked as the night goes on. As Kerry mentioned, I'm from New York. I'm a CFA. I worked on Wall Street for 15 years, maybe it's 20, depending if you count all those internships at places like Merrill Lynch and Lehman Brothers and Prudential, all kinds of companies that have been bankrupted or gone, or defrauded, etc. I worked at Cantor Fitzgerald. And in fact, the person who hired me at Cantor Fitzgerald came by earlier today. He's a good friend of mine. I worked on the buy side. I saw manipulation on the buy side, which was nothing compared to now. And of course, I worked on the sell side at Solomon Smith Barney covering oil companies. And it's funny when I say, well, I left Wall Street because of corruption back in 2005. Well, partly I left because I was laid off, because the business was contracting 10 years ago. But most of the reason I left was because of I didn't like the corruption, the conflict of interest that I saw around me. And when I think about the scandals back then, WorldCom, Enron, the Solomon Treasury scandal, I think that's nothing. I mean, that's good stuff compared to what we see today. The world has changed a lot in the last 10 years. Unfortunately, the financial world, the business world, and the political world has changed for the worse. And as a result, I found myself in what I believe is the only lifeboat that's going to get us through what's going to be a very difficult period. I found out about precious metals in 2002. In fact, it was my broker at Solomon Smith Barney who told me about, he told me to buy Newmont Mining. You know what, that guy, he's been vilified, running money for 10 years, and losing money, and he left the business this year to become a farmer. He was so dispirited by what they put him through. And I think the only way I survived this was with physical metal. The physical metal helps me sleep at night. I know that it's going to be around for as long as I am and then some. And I also happen to know, careful manipulation that we're talking about here, that it's the most undervalued it's ever been in the history of mankind from an inflation-adjusted standpoint. And then, of course, when I left in 2005, I worked in the mining industry for 5 years in investor relations, went around the world seeing mining companies, mines, conferences. And then, of course, in 2011, just as the price of gold was peaking, I came across Miles Franklin, which was, to me, my calling. It was what I need to do, what I like to do. And part of the hard work I'm doing, which thankfully I can do from home, is actually what I love to do. So on that note, I think we're ready to, well, we'll just go over today's Q&A topics. I don't really know if we need to do this because there's going to be a lot of questions, but there's all kinds of things you can ask us about. You can ask us about the economy in general. You can ask us about the effect of geopolitics or the manipulation of gold and silver and bonds and stocks and commodities and currencies, paper gold and paper ETFs. And of course, it's very rare that you get someone, let alone someone that's transparent. I mean, Amex, right? They're the biggest company in the business. I don't even know if they have a marketing aspect. I don't think you could speak to anyone at that company, let alone the president of the company. And I assure you, Andy not only knows more than anyone about the business, but he has the compassion for his clients that I don't see in very many businesses that I ever deal with. And then, of course, there's all kinds of things asked about numismatics, confiscation, what metals to own. And and generally speaking, anything. And feel free to incorporate Kerry into the discussion as well. You know, Kerry's become a pretty impressive jack of all trades in the alternative world. In tying together a lot of these things. I really appreciate all those podcasts that you're doing, Kerry. So with that, Kerry, you can take over how we're going to ask questions today. It's a little different than usual.
Okay, get this one back on. So we're going to take questions both from people here and people on the webinar. I hope that the sound is working out there. I see it's just stuff that we can't do. We can't really, control, unfortunately. So I hope you guys out there will bear with us. And let's see here. So why don't we take some questions? If you go over to where Melissa's standing so you can speak into the microphone, that would be great. And let's see. So, okay, first questioner, just say your first name and welcome.
My name is Richard, and I'd like to start by asking a question that and that is, the Western world has embraced Keynesian economics, completely controlled the power of the people. And yet it's so evident that Keynesian economics is not working. These are not stupid people, the people at the Fed, the people at Treasury. Jim Grant from Interest Rate Observer calls them the PhD standard. And I don't understand why so many intelligent people still believe in Keynesian economics. And I'd like to know your opinions, because that's very important in understanding your motivation for my goals.
Right. Well, the first thing I would say to that is I don't think most people in America, probably like 95%, have even heard of John Keynes or Keynesianism. So you're really talking about a subsector of the mainstream. The mainstream, whose goal is to stay in power and stay wealthy at your expense, unfortunately. Because that's what Keynesianism is. It basically only works in a fiat currency standard. A fiat currency standard only benefits the bankers, politicians, and corporate titans at the top of the scale. So I don't think really most people have any clue what that means. Frankly, it's such an ambiguous term. Really, all Keynesianism means is the government owns everything. It's not far from communism. Because when the government runs everything, like you can call what we have now in America capitalism. Problem is that the government regulates everything. The government has a piece of everything. The government taxes everything. And, they bail out anyone who has problems that they choose to bail out, and they destroy whoever they choose to destroy. So, basically, it's not an embracing of Keynesianism. It's just a power struggle. And, the thing is, I would say the average person knows that things are wrong, but they don't have the means to protect themselves. And that's, aside from they say the dumbing down of society. Of course, there's been a dumbing down of society in cultures where you have an empire like America. People get lax and they start stop thinking about the kind of things the founding fathers thought about. But the biggest thing is when people say, why doesn't everyone buy gold? Because no one has money. That's what we've been harping on forever. That's what the good websites that tell the truth are showing. The average person has no savings. The average person makes very little money and is taxed on whatever they have, and the cost of living is exploding. So you try to tell somebody who's struggling, hand them out that gold. They don't care. They just want to get free stuff so they can survive. It's not even that they're bad people. You want whatever you can get. So you got right now an election where all these people are voting for Trump because they hate what's going on, and other people are voting for Sanders because he's promising them whatever they want. So I don't think it's this big thing with the West is embracing Keynesianism. I think it's it's the same regime change, the same regime that we've seen throughout history fail time after time. And right now it's failing miserably because you have never seen greater wealth disparity in the world, and you have never seen systems like a fiat currency system breaking so badly, debt exploding, currencies crashing, volatility in the markets, manipulation that everyone can see. It's the worst global economy of our lifetime. So it's propaganda that makes you think that everyone's embracing it, but when you see most of the hedge funds starting to go out of business, they're not embracing it. They're just hanging on for dear life right now.
All right, so we're having some sound issues for those of you at home, but hey, this is experimental here. Like I say, I've never done a live event and a webcast at the same time. And if we had cameramen here, we could probably do a better job, and a sound engineer, which I guess is my job. So, well, this mic here, if you come over here, probably should just come over here and you can talk into this mic, which will go to the home audience. So let's get another question from you guys. Are you hearing me okay out there? All right. So, all right, there was one here. It was a Bix Weir question. Anybody ever hear of Bix Weir? Yeah, well, we know Bix quite well. He's been on the show any number of times, and it was something to the effect, Andy, of are they really trying to bust the system? Is that a deliberate act? And, I have my opinions, but I will defer to you guys. Come over here.
Sure.
And you want to go speak into that?
Okay. Yes. Yes. Bix Weir is a good friend of ours. I met him on GATA way back when, probably 2002 or 3. Sorry, 2 microphones. And yes, Bix has some theories which are conspiratorial in nature, which simply means they're not provable. That doesn't mean they're not true. But me personally, I go more for the Occam's razor. I think I've been alive long enough to see how difficult life is and how difficult it is to keep difficult things going on, like a Fiat Ponzi scheme. And I don't truly believe there's good or bad guys. I think the people who are in charge want to stay in charge, and the people who are not in charge don't really have much power to do anything. It's really a battle between the forces of economic Mother Nature and the people on the top of the food chain who want to stay in power and stay rich. So no, I don't believe anyone's trying to do anything. There are certainly different facets. There are different factions that are all fighting against each other. For instance, you see the Saudi Arabians, we're going to get people to sue them for 9/11, and then they say we're going to sell our treasuries, but we're not going to produce enough oil or too much oil. So everyone's at each other's throats. But I don't really believe there's good or bad guys. I mean, there are some bad guys out there, but I don't think there's 2 teams. I think it's just an inevitability of economic Mother Nature.
Okay, and by far, what Bix Weir is one of the most interesting and widely viewed subjects I have on the show. And, I always say predictions I'm not a real fan of. You could either predict what's going to happen or when it's going to happen. But if you try to predict both, everybody's going to think basically that you don't know what you're talking about, and you're going to be wrong. I mean, who would have thought the last 5 years, gold prices being, precious metals prices really being held down and totally manipulated, and the appearance of the return of normalcy? Who would have believed that they could keep this going for as long as they have? And yet, guess what? That's exactly what's happened. So never underestimate the power of the status quo. We won't even call them a conspiracy. Just the people, like Andy said, who are in power, want to stay in power, and will do whatever is necessary. And it all seems rational to them when they're doing it. But in reality, we all wind up having to pick up the pieces. So next question, just tell us your first name.
My name is Robert. I'd like to begin by thanking Miles Franklin, Mr. Lutz, and Hoffman for coming on this presentation. My question has to do with the manipulation of the market. I've heard many theories as to who might be manipulating the market and some why. I was wondering if Andy thought.
Okay, let's just repeat the question.
Yeah.
Answer this one.
And take it away.
Okay. Well, I'll just say, by the way, sometimes it seems one-sided, where all the questions come from me, but no, it'll change in time. Right? There'll be 10 in a row for
I
him.
think we're both going to answer
There
this.
you go.
I'm going to give you a take on this that that Andy Hoffman won't talk about. I don't know if he believes it, but I do, and it's a little bit longer. I've been, if you look at every speech that I've given since 2007, every interview, every podcast, every conversation has centered around one topic, and that is misdirection and manipulation. And there are reasons why I believe this to be the case. We can go all the way back to the beginning and talk about Gibson's paradox, the inverse relationship between interest rates and real gold, but I think we'll fast forward a little bit and talk about what's happening right now. I've been saying since 2008 that big money, like the no-look pass in basketball, or the fake handoff to the right and the screen pass to the left, is misdirecting the public with price. Now, I've been saying this forever. Jim Rickards just said it last week, so it must be true now. Jim Rickards said the price of gold is being manipulated by the Chinese so that they can acquire it. That's exactly what I've been saying. And let me explain to you why and how I believe this to be true. First of all, if you want to buy a 100-ounce gold contract, it costs just over $3,000. And now you control $130,000 worth of movement. If you're a big money center like JP Morgan, who, by the way, over the last 3 years, as they've pushed the price down on paper with leverage, according to Ted Butler, have amassed north of 500 million ounces of physical silver in their house account. That's many magnitudes of the largest position the world has ever seen, ever, physical silver in their house account. Goldman Sachs, the last year or so, has purchased over 3 tons of physical gold. Do you think they know something that we don't? But as Rickards says, the Chinese are central to this manipulation. Now, this is what I have been saying, and I'll tell you why I've been saying this, okay? 2008, David Morgan calls me up and says, Andy, let's go speak at the Money Show in Las Vegas together. It's July. Wake up in the morning, I'm excited. We're in Vegas, we're having breakfast, and I look, and gold was at 1,000, and it's on its way down to 700. Now, this happened in about 3 days, just collapsing. Price of silver went from 21 to 9 over the same period of time. 3 days. Looked like my world was ending. And in that environment, in an environment where stock A that you just bought went from 1,000 to 700, fell 30%, and stock B, it's not gold and silver, let's just call it stock A and B. Stock B went from 21 to 9, fell by 65%. Are you thinking to yourself, there must be strong demand for this? Or are you thinking, my God, there's no demand, everyone's dumping everything, right? That's what you're thinking. The law of supply and demand basically says that if you have such a waning demand, it's obviously, or such a falling price, it's obviously associated with a waning demand, right? So there should be a lot of supply. They move inverse of each other. Here's what happened. Price of gold and silver collapsed, and within 1 week, every major mint in the world was sold out of product. Every single one. The Canadian mint and the Austrian mint were working 24 hours a day, 3 8-hour shifts, sold out of product. A couple months later, they said we could start selling product again, but that was with the 12-week delivery delay. The Rand Mint in South Africa, for the first time in 60 years, sold everything they had as the price fell by 30%. Within 1 week, this happened. Everything was gone. The Canadian or the U.S. Mint was shut down 8 times in 2008. Really have never resumed any normal activity since then. And the Australian Perth Mint shut down in August of that year, took no new business. So the moral of the story is, in this industry, and it's happened repetitively since 2008, every time we see the price get its butt kicked, within 1 week, everything disappears. The laws of supply and demand have been rewritten in the precious metals industry. Now, I want you to think big picture here, okay? Because the laws of supply and demand are the laws of supply and demand. They haven't been rewritten. What happens is big money pushes down the price of all of the world's commodities with leverage. Not just precious metals. Look at base metals, copper, aluminum. Look at fossil fuels. Now, if you're choking on dollar bills, right? Choking on dollar bills, and you're choking on treasuries, and you see the big picture. Why not just sell your treasuries and your dollars and go buy everything? Or is that counterproductive? Does that cut off your nose to spite your face? Do interest rates spike? Does the dollar tank? Probably. So here's what we do. We misdirect the public through price manipulation. People nowadays are too lazy to look at underneath the hood. They just look at the price to earnings ratio when they buy a stock. If any of you saw the movie The Big Short, what did those guys do when they wanted to go check out what was going on? They went and they saw the houses. They interviewed the stripper who had 6 houses. They went and they did the work to find out what was under the hood. People nowadays, they look at the price and that's the reality. So here's what the big money does. They suppress all of the world's commodities on paper 2 ways. 1, counterintuitively to what's happening in the world. Why the hell is gold and silver not going up when the world's falling apart? You scratch your head, you look at the S&P and the Dow that have been goosed, and you start to question your own perception of reality. Secondly, and more importantly, technically, they violate moving averages. Typically, 50 and 200-day moving averages. The price falls below those averages, and what happens? Harry Dent comes out of the corner screaming. And who else? The financials, the advisors, even if you don't understand technical analysis, but you happen to own an Edward Jones franchise. You subscribe to the Edward Jones corporate newsletter that says technicals look really bad. But who else uses technicals? Mutual funds, hedge funds. So all of a sudden you've painted the chart by the no-look paths, right? And now everyone is goosed and looking at the equities while you shorted the hell out of every commodity on the planet, right? Created your perception of reality. Then what do? You come in and you gobble up the physicals, not just the gold and the silver, but the copper. I read recently that China buys 5 times the copper they need for annual production. So it's money to them. So they gobble up the copper, the aluminum, the gold, the silver, the platinum, the oil. They build ghost cities. They're building an infrastructure with our cheap dollars. They short the price to create an illusion of reality. No one's looking at commodities when they're getting their butt kicked and the equities are going to the moon. Gives them carte blanche to pick everything up, but there's one piece of the puzzle if you're paying attention. What's the other piece of the puzzle? It's the treasuries and the short position. How do you cover your shorts? Treasuries. Slowly start to sell your treasuries. Not too fast. Don't want interest rates to spike. But you notice they're telling you they're not buying anymore. In fact, they're selling. So you slowly sell your treasuries. You cover your short positions. And when it's all said and done, you've all been looking over here as this has scooped up all of the world's commodities on the cheap. And when it's all said and done, they're out of dollars to which they've retained value. They're out of treasuries to which they retain value. And they own every single bit of the world's commodities on the cheap. If you do not believe in manipulation, I've got something to sell you. And I promise you, it's true, it's happening. When you get admission by Deutsche Bank that they've been doing this, that they've been manipulating the price of gold and silver, when you see that JP Morgan and American Barrick admitted in federal court several years ago that they too have been manipulating the price of gold and silver, of course, at the behest of the US government, which has sovereign immunity. When you see all of these things happening, I go back to what Chris Powell says. There are no free markets anymore, just manipulations. And the only way you win is to get on the right side of the manipulation. You buy. You don't look at price. Price is not the fundamental. Mathematics, economics, and logic are. And I can boil it down to one simple thing. 1 trillion seconds ago was 31,688 years ago. How do you pay off nearly 20 trillion in debt and 150 trillion in unfunded liabilities in this country? You don't. And big money knows that. So they're using what precious time they have left to manipulate you all into believing commodities bad, equities good, and they're pickpocketing everything the world has to offer until someday they have enough and no one wants to deliver and there's no bid and they'll make as much money on the upside as they did on the down. Manipulation is your friend. Don't let it piss you off. It's your friend. These are subsidized prices. Gold and silver should be many times what they are, and they should have been a long time ago. So that's my take.
Okay. And all right, we've got a lot of questions here. Does anybody else want to ask a question?
Can I speak about manipulation?
Briefly, but
Topic I know a bit about. Well, look, what Andy says may well be true,
And in fact, there's no doubt that the Chinese are certainly a big part of whatever is going on, whether it's collusive with the West or on their own, or both. But the fact is, manipulation comes in different forms. When we talk about why do we own gold and silver, the primary reason, aside from monetary protection, is the fact that those same powers that be that I'm talking about, who want to remain in power with a fiat currency standard, need the price of real money to be down. They don't want people buying it. Unfortunately, the lower they push the paper price, as Andy was talking about, the more demand is. So here we are in a situation where the price has been pushed, at least in dollar price terms, to historically low levels on an inflation-adjusted basis. And as Andy said, you should have low demand and high supply. The problem is we have record high demand. We have vanishing global inventories, easily the lowest inventories in generations, maybe ever. And guess what? Peak gold and silver hit last year, just like I said it would. All these other commodities, I don't see peak anything. You'll never see peak oil, that's for sure. Gold and silver, we're not going to see production rise for years to come. And in silver's case, if you do see a further decline in base metal prices, where 2/3 of all the silver comes from, you're going to see a cataclysmic drop-off just as demand hits record highs and we run out of inventories. But again, manipulation. There are people like the governments, the central banks, who are trying to protect their currency. There are also governments like China who, are taking advantage of their position. They have all these dollars that they've collected in years of the manipulation of currencies, and they're trying to offload them, as well as their treasuries, into items of real value. And no one knows about the value of real money more than China, since they had the first and most fiat currency schemes in history. Their first failing fiat currency was 1,000 years ago. And then, of course, you have the piggybackers. You have the traders who are not stupid. They see this going on every day. I mean, believe me, I would be a zillionaire if I had ever been given the ability to be a trader with other people's money. I write about it every day about the same patterns. So again, there's many different parties that are doing manipulation. But when it all comes down to why we're here, why we should be buying gold and silver, it's because the government is trying to protect their fiat currency franchise. And there have been close to 1,000 of such franchises in history, and every single one has failed.
And I totally subscribe to manipulation, and I challenge everybody in this room to find one market that isn't manipulated. I think maybe the used car market and perhaps eBay, but even eBay, you got to wonder. So next question from the gentleman over there. Just tell us your first name. A lot of Richards here.
First of all, there's something that comment about Jeff Christian.
Jeff Christian. Okay. So first question.
Talk about Jeff Christian.
Yeah. So it's one of Andy's good friends there. But hey, I've interviewed Jeff a few times, not lately. Oh, well, no, he's a CPM Group, which is a spinoff of Goldman Sachs, which is, like, I think the largest commodity.
And a silver summit night, he was walking down and says, hey, tell me about Ted Bunner. He said, well, he's an asshole.
Okay, so tell us about, okay, so Jeffrey Christian, that's the question. Andy's personal opinion, not endorsed by Miles Franklin or myself, so if there's any potential ambulance chasing lawyers here looking for a slander suit, sue Andy.
There's no slander required. I do have a personal opinion, because as it turns out, when I left Solomon in 2005 and I started to get into precious metals, I was looking for a job in the precious metal sector. And Jeffrey Christian, his office is on Wall Street, very shabby office. It's kind of gross. And he got me in for an interview. I was very excited. The CPM Group, they write the handbook for silver supply and demand for the world, and which is quite amazing to me, because so much of it is wrong. It doesn't even talk about investment demand. It talks only really about industrial demand, and of course it leaves out manipulation and a whole bunch of other things. But the fact is that this guy who worked for Goldman Sachs is the prototypical. It's almost like from a movie. He's like the economist from Atlas Shrugged. His job is just to spout lies. And the thing is, he lies. Yes, misinformation. And the fact is, he's not even a good communicator. He's kind of like a Ben Bernanke or Janet Yellen. And in his the most important time of his life, the most important comment he ever made, he accidentally admitted that yes, the COMEX trading is 100 times more than the actual gold that's underneath it. And this right after he's saying that there's no manipulation. So, look, the guy is bad news. He's from Goldman Sachs. And somehow, it's so prototypical, it's typical in this industry that the guy who's supposedly in charge, the guru of silver knowledge, is the most anti-silver. I remember sitting in that interview with him, and this is 2005, so it was probably, I don't know, 5 or...
You're saying he's nasty thinking about it. He's a very powerful man.
It's not a powerful man. I mean, he's got a job of spouting lies. That doesn't make him powerful.
If I might.
Yeah.
All right, so I think let's move on from Jeffrey, Christian.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their opinions about everybody else.
The President's Working Committee on the Markets. Could you comment on that committee and manipulation that you have mentioned?
All right.
Also, does the President's
one question at a time. We'll get to them all, promise. Okay, so the question was, Richard's asking comment on the President's Working Group on Markets, otherwise known as the Plunge Protection Team, but we'll let one of the Andes take it from here.
Well, that's an easy one. In fact, that term, Plunge Protection Team, came from none other than George Stephanopoulos. Right after he was in office, he was very well aware of what the President's Working Group on Financial Markets does, and he said it on an interview right after he left office. Basically, look, we talk about, is there manipulation? It's so funny that people would ask that question when the government has an official agency to manipulate every market. I mean, this agency, which came around right after the 1987 crash, right after Alan Greenspan became the chairman of the Fed, was in response to the 1987 crash. They, led by President Reagan at the time, they said, we need to find a committee that can support markets during times of emergency. And that's kind of how their mandate reads. The problem is that as the global economy has fallen apart and America's financial empire has fallen apart, it's become a 24/7 operation. And for that matter, the Fed's job is to manipulate interest rates. Okay, so that's stocks and bonds. Then you have the Exchange Stabilization Fund. Again, a very, very overt, well-known government agency whose mandate is to manage, as in manipulate, currencies and gold. And the fact is, of course, that they can do whatever they want and they're not audited just like anything else. So again, the manipulation is overt. There's nothing secretive about it other than they won't tell you exactly what they're doing on any given day.
This agency, manipulation you're talking about.
Okay, well, they exist. I think it's been fairly well documented. We know that central banks are in there buying stocks. Look, Japan's central bank, they're running out of stocks to buy. But I got
this to the President's Working Committee on the Markets.
Well, Japan's central bank said it 2 days ago, but I think we've got to take another question here from those of you who are kind enough to be watching from at home. And this is from Jack. Can you see anything coming down the pipeline which will affect silver's indispensability? Someone out there working on a silver alternative? Could tech evolve, to not need silver? So I guess the question is basically, will technology emerge that basically gets rid of the need for silver? I mean, I'll take a stab at that one because it's something that I've really studied quite a bit. You've got these nanowires, nanotubes coated with silver molecules that they're starting to use in battery technology. Yeah, perhaps down the road there will be, shall we say, substitutes for silver. But at the present time, it's not just a question of substitutes. The number of products that use silver, whether it be athletic clothes with silver coating to kill bacteria, to limit body odor, bandages. It used to be a Band-Aid was a Band-Aid, a piece of gauze and a piece of adhesive plastic. And you put it on. Now, a Band-Aid's got silver oxide coating, and it's there. And then the proliferation of electronic devices in every aspect of society, I don't see anything stopping it. So yeah, in the end, technology will cure all of our problems, all of our shortages, and it's going to be great. But you know, we've been talking a lot about John Maynard Keynes, famed British, actually I think he was Scottish, like Smith, Adam Smith. Keynes said, in the long run, we're all dead. So basically, yeah, in the long run, it'll be solved, but how many of us will be around when these substitutes come about? But it could happen tomorrow for all we know. But the real question is the substitution of silver in industrial processes, okay, in using it for electronics, what effect will that have on the price? Will it sink silver? And because then silver would be left with just investment demand. Well, let's go back. Does anybody here remember X-rays? Anybody here ever get an X-ray with film? That was the leading use of silver on the planet for many years. Yep, photography. Yep, photography, X-rays. They would go to doctors' offices and give them like $10 a pound for their old X-rays, right, Andy? So now, silver is not used in photography. It's not used in X-rays at all. And yet, hey, the world's still consuming it. So a long-winded answer, but I think...
Real quick, by the way, just to piggyback on that, in 2008, when all the silver disappeared, I couldn't get anything. David Morgan, my buddy who writes the silver-investor.com report, called me up and he said, I know there's no silver to be found. And there was none to be found. In fact, I thought it would put me out of business that year. He said there's this group out of Washington called Pyromet, and they've been in X-rays for the last 30 years, and they have a room full of silver, and they're willing to make a mold real quick to make 100-ounce bars. I said, yeah. So they did. They made a mold, and they made the ugliest 100-ounce bars you've ever seen. In fact, they just said 100 ounces. They didn't even say what. Didn't say silver. But there was nothing to be sold, and everyone bought them. That was all that was available the second half of 2008. So just to piggyback on that, fact.
Yeah, there's obviously two parts to this question. One is there going to be an industrial substitute for silver? And then the bigger question, a monetary substitute. Now, industrially, I mean, yeah, there's always someone saying they got something new. There's something that's called graphene. It's been in the works forever. It's super high cost. I don't even know if it's an actual substitute, but if it is, it's so high cost right now that it's not even in the league of silver. So I don't think that's happening anytime soon. But more importantly, for all the hype that Jeff Christian and everyone talks about industrial demand, which does in fact take up 3/4 of all mine production, it's not industrial demand that made the price of silver go from 4 to 50, and it's not industrial demand that's going to make it go from 17 to 1,700 or 17,000 or whatever the number is. It's all about investment demand. And when you look at what defines money, okay, not currency, what defines money? The fact that, yes, it's fungible and it's divisible and it's a unit of currency, of monetary exchange. The fact is, what has made gold and silver and nothing else throughout history act as money is because they are scarce and because they are valuable and because they are irreplaceable, and so far have been in thousands of years. I mean, there's a reason why people joke about alchemy, because you cannot turn lead into gold, and I really, really doubt that certainly in our lifetimes, anyone's going to be able to replicate the physical properties of silver, let alone the monetary properties.
Oh, thanks, Ant. Here's a really great question. Anybody here ever hear of Mark Dice? Anybody? Yeah. Okay. Well, here, this question, a little humorous. Mark Dice's videos prove most people are moron sheep who know nothing about money, metals, or price of labor. So what good will constitutional silver be during zombie apocalypse if the majority of people around you are morons? Which, I mean, guess what he's saying.
Explain what his videos are.
Yeah. I've watched them for about 5 minutes and turned them off because, look, coming from a legal background, I want to see facts. I don't want to see people's opinion masquerading as fact. Every now and then I slip into it in the show. But, you know, he's basically saying that Martians or aliens or Area 51 are running everything and reptiles and, you know, not to get into it all, but on the other hand, the core of the question that I see it is, hey, if you have chaos, if the social order breaks down, it's wonderful that you have a bag of silver, but what good is that going to do you? Is that fair representation of what that question's really asking? So
I think both Andy and I will have an answer to that. And I think actually that what he's referring to in the videos is that this guy, I'm not sure if he works for Bullion Dealer or just does these marketing things in front of them because he gets a lot of hits on YouTube. He'll go up to a bunch of people, it's in San Diego, and he says, I got a 10-ounce bar of silver in one hand, I got a candy bar in another, which do you want? And they all say candy bar. Of course, who knows how many he cut out that said they wanted the silver bar. But the point is that there's a dumbing down. He's actually done it with, I remember with a gold maple leaf, and people didn't want $1,000 in lieu of a candy bar. But the fact is, again, it's just like anything else. You know, when something is in vogue, people care about it. They cared about internet stocks. They cared about Florida condos. They care about Netflix stock. They care about whatever is in vogue. And right now, in a society that has never had any interest in gold and silver, they definitely don't care about gold and silver, especially those that, as I said before, don't have the means to buy it anyway. But you can be rest assured, and this is the main reason for manipulation, that the second the price goes up, they will all know about it. And Andy can now answer to you about the only time, certainly in the last 10 years, where the average person came into the gold and silver market.
Yeah, that would have been when the price was nearing $50 an ounce. We were getting over 200 phone calls a day. And believe me, it's noticed. That would also be noticed in the backdrop of a dollar that is losing ground rapidly. My father has a friend who, he's a car aficionado, and he told a story of being in, I believe, Argentina at a Ferrari dealership where they had the prices of the Ferraris in a chalkboard, and every 20 or 30 minutes were erasing it and putting a higher price in because their currency was plunging. So if and when many of us think the dollar begins to rapidly lose value, anything that's tangible will resonate, will stick out, and especially something that's been considered wealth for 6,000 years. So zombie apocalypse, yeah, trouble, yeah, I believe all that stuff, it's a possibility and it could happen. There's so many what ifs and suppositions. If it's me, I fall back on 5,000 plus years worth of history. It's always been wealth, and it'll be wealth in the year 3000 when the dollar bills in our wallets are hanging, or samples of, are hanging in a frame in the Smithsonian. So I'll take my chances.
Okay. Okay, so next question from somebody in the audience here.
Steve, I'd like you to explain to me programming algorithms that create that two guys price of gold to fix the US dollar. Yeah, I understand what that has to
Really good question, and I've been getting my arms around it for a while. So the question was the algorithms, the trading strategies that the major banks are using to control the price of gold all revolve around the dollar-yen rate of exchange. And so the question is, how does that work? And the interesting thing is that if you had sold the yen short and bought gold in 2011, you would have actually made money on that trade. And you know, so I'll let somebody who knows markets much better than I explain it. Andy?
Yes, the gist of it is there is absolutely no correlation. I should say no correlation. There's absolutely no relationship between the value of the United States dollar, Japanese yen, and gold, stocks, or anything.
The reason is that they simply create things that they know that piggyback traders are going to watch. Even zero hedge, they don't even realize that they're perpetuating this by constantly writing about how the yen is moving and therefore it's time to buy stocks. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just a pre-programmed way to make markets move, to get people to piggyback, to say, I know, I see this coming, so I'm going to jump on board. That's all. And the thing that hurts, the thing that bothers me the most is when people say, well, it's, whenever the yen goes one way, gold goes this way, and whenever it goes the other way, gold goes the other way. It's not true. It's not true. I've seen a million times where the yen was going the way that should help gold, but it didn't. Or the Dow was, the Dow, they say the Dow is gold's going to go up because the Dow goes down, and it doesn't. The fact is, when you're in a bear market phase, as we've been in for gold until a couple of months ago, everything went against them. And yes, there were times where gold moved according to that relationship, or oil, or stocks, or whatever. But for the most part, it's just a fabrication that's created to get some traders to help those trying to manipulate gold and silver and other things to help them out. That's all. So I wouldn't get too excited about it. And it really, when I see people write about that, it bothers me because it's talk about misdirection. And sadly, I think a lot of it is people who just are not seeing the forest through the trees. It's all about key markets being suppressed or held up, primarily the stock market and gold, and everything else is just kind of noise.
And like one event that happens, or that's been happening with alarming regularity, that I'm going to ask Andy to comment on, non-farm payroll reports. Like, all right, there's no other statistic that is more manipulated, abused, because as I can't remember who it was, some guest of mine said, if they want to know exactly what the payrolls are, all they have to do is look at the quarterly payroll reports that get submitted. They have that data within 2 days afterwards. The whole survey of employers is just garbage, it's antiquated, and it is so subject to manipulation, especially through the birth-death index, where they say, oh, well, all these people started jobs. But in fact, over the past 5 years, is it, Andy, the number of new businesses started in the United States is dropping. So how are those self-employed people, how are they doing it? So, Andy, like, you always see that smash down, whether the number is good, the payroll number is good, bad, or the same. What is going on there?
That's right. Again, it's one of these things where they say, well, if the jobs number is bad, then gold goes up and vice versa. But no, if you actually look at what's actually happened during this bear market phase, which I say with quotes around it because it's nothing more than cartel orchestrated, pretty much at every payroll report, gold is either smashed or it's capped, whereas stocks are either surging or they're being supported. It's that simple. And that's just what I call a key attack event. A jobs report, a Fed meeting, any speech by the president or the Fed chairman, or meetings. I mean, people don't even remember. This was only a month ago. I remember the ECB came out with that massive, unexpected QE increase from 60 billion euros a month to 80 billion. And yes, gold was up that day, $20, but no one saw that when it first came out. Gold was hit by $15 in the first 2 minutes after it was announced, because they're trying to, mute the reaction that they know is coming. So again, all these things, whether it's economic data, whether it's someone speaking, they're all just ways to create a perception. And during a bear market phase, as we've seen for 4 years, everything they did worked. Yeah, sometimes they got it to look like, it's moving with the Japanese yen, and sometimes the yen went the other way and they hit it anyway. But what's going on right now is we are no longer in a bear market phase. Around the world, the bear market in gold ended 2 years ago. The average gold in the average currency is probably, it's hard to do the average, I'd say about 10% from its all-time high around the world. That's for people, 6 billion people that have gold or use gold. So it's the bear market ended a long time ago around the world, and in the United States, the bear market ended 2 months ago. The institutional money is flying into the markets, which is a telltale sign. They're in the mining shares, they're in the ETFs, they're in the closed-end bullion funds. And, you see what's happened in the last few days. Incredible to see how much manipulation is required to get nowhere. I mean, silver's at its highest level in almost a year right now, despite some of the most incredible smashes ever. And I see even the mining shares, they don't want to go down because they know prices are going higher. So again, it's all forest through the trees. It's just, there was a time, a rare window in history, 4 years, where anything that they wanted to do, despite the fundamentals, worked. And now the fundamentals are not only worse and getting worse, but everything that they're attempting is failing.
Excellent. And
one more thing, Kerry.
Sure.
Remember, we have the ultimate expert on the precious metal bullion industry here. And, you know, our last meeting in Phoenix, I think more than half the questions went that way. So certainly, if you have questions, especially with all these things we're talking about with Tolving and Bullion Direct and just the Northwest Territorial Mint last week, ask away. Andy knows everything there is to know about how the industry works. And believe me, it's a very, very difficult industry to get your hands around without the proper guidance.
Okay, so somebody just as a comment here, it said that if you throw a silver dollar in a pail of milk, things get bad. It will kill off all the bacteria in it, because silver is still the ultimate antibacterial agent. I wish I could put all of these comments up on the screen, which next time I'll figure out how to do that, because they're real interesting. Yes? Oh, very sorry. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. All these microphones, I'm used to one mic in front of me that literally is up against me. So if there's any problems, you have a problem hearing, just tell us and we'll do better. Okay, so, oh, here's a good one. Do you see the complete abolition of cash and or metals in a negative interest rate regime? I don't really worry about confiscation as much as complete outlaw of metals. How do you see that play out? There's war on cash. It's like somebody came up with the term about 8 months ago, 10 months ago. I'd written about this a long time ago, because if you look at the bills in your pocket, the notes, they're not bills, just pull out whatever money is in your pocket and take a look at the vintage of those notes. And you'll see that they're falling apart, basically. And it's all part of the government's desire and plan to get you to abandon cash, because hey, you could do all sorts of things with cash, very difficult to track cash. So yeah, this is a concerted effort. It's been going on for a long time, and it's always, oh, it's so convenient to use your credit card or your debit card, right? Why carry all that cash? Somebody might hold you up. And all of these societal things, it's really a very comprehensive campaign. I realized that when I looked at the tip jar at Starbucks, I was kind of talking to the barista, how much you guys get? And they're, you know, sometimes they get like $100 a piece a day. So multiply that times 12,000 Starbucks, times 365 days a year, you got $1 billion running through the tip jars, collective tip jars at Starbucks, only partially taxed. You know, Uncle Sam wants his fair share of that, and that's what you see happening. So I'll let Andy talk more about it, but just wanted to share those observations with you.
Okay, well, first of all, these are real things. You know, negative interest rates it's not a fairy tale any longer. It's happening. And when Lawrence Summers, Lawrence Summers is a bad dude. Lawrence Summers is, in my opinion, the chief architect of all the manipulation that we see. Lawrence Summers won all sorts of accolades for a report he wrote called Gibson's Paradox Revisited while he was a president at Harvard. And then he began to advise the first Clinton presidency, then he became the Treasury Secretary, then he's advised every president since. Lawrence Summers understands manipulation and interest rates and the inverse relationship between gold and interest rates. Lawrence Summers came out and said, let's get rid of the $100 bills, let's get rid of the 500 euro, and I think there's like a 2,000 Swiss franc. Let's get rid of them all, because only drug dealers, of course, and criminals would have cash. Here's my first thing you should all do before you buy any gold from me: get a bunch of cash. Go to the bank, and I don't care what they say to you. Say to them, it's none of your damn business. Since when is it your business what I do with my money? I want 5s, 10s, and 20s. No hundreds. I want 5, 10s, and 20s, and I do it all the time. And they laugh when I come in. I went and got a big pack of $2 bills the other day, 1,000 of them, 2,000. Looked like something that you'd see in a drug movie. And they all passed it around. It was shrink wrap. I have lots of cash, and I think you all should too, because if the crap hits the fan, you're going to wish you did. Ask the people in Greece about that. First and foremost, have cash, small bills. I had a lot of cash with me in $100 bills in Las Vegas not too long ago. I went down to the cage. I said, I'd like to turn this $15,000 into 10s and 20s. They said, we can do 500 a day. Then he said, over there is a machine. And there was a machine in the corner where I sat for 3.5 hours and fed $100 bills into that pumped out 20s and 5s. And I'm telling you, where there's smoke, there's fire. And you're going to say to yourself, just like everyone always does, damn it, I knew I should have done that. Because they talked about it. They gave us advance warning. Don't be that person who says, damn it, I knew I should have done it. You should have cash, small bills. Now, as far as confiscation is concerned, we're asked that question a lot. I'm going to give you a different take, okay? Does anybody own GLD in this room? Okay. I would challenge you to download the prospectus of GLD and or SLD and read pages 6 through 12, titled Risk Factors. Sit down with a beer or a cup of coffee, read it slowly. Read it again and read it a third time. And if you don't rush tomorrow morning to call your broker and say, sell, I'll buy you a gold coin. It is filled and fraught with nefarious terms and conditions that completely and totally separate them from any liability. Things such as, and I'll get to the final thing about confiscation, but things such as the custodian has the right to use sub-custodians and is not responsible for the heirs and or omissions of said sub-custodians. The custodian is not responsible if the gold that the sub-custodians holds do not meet London good delivery standards. In other words, lead bars, penal gold. Sorry, it's not my problem. It says it in the prospectus. But what it also says in the prospectus, more clearly than anything, is that you, unless you are an authorized participant, i.e. a commercial bank who funded thousands and thousands of ounces of gold and silver, you can't take possession of the metal, right? So in a world where information travels like this, if Obama stubbed his toe walking out of his bedroom, it'd be all over CNN, right? In a world where information travels so quickly, if our government tried to activate eminent domain and take gold from us, the center of free trade, the world reserve currency, it's game over. You're going to have a lot of bigger problems to have at that point than turning in your gold. I'd rather have contraband gold than turn it in that environment. However, I believe the reason that they designed GLD and SLV is exactly that. Here you have two big funds that siphon in all the investor money, the advisors, the mutual funds, the hedge funds. When I started in this industry, I was 19 years old in 1989, they used to be called stockbrokers. They weren't called financial advisors. In a brokerage, there was one, maybe two guys that were advisors. Everyone else was a stockbroker. They made their money by trading. You make a trade, they make a percent. You sell something, they get a percent. And then came the internet, right? Because in 1989, no one had internet. I remember my dad came back from Japan. He said, I got us this really cool thing. It's called a fax machine. Oh, wow. So, that's where we started. Everything was paper. There was no internet. But then the internet came along and said, well, hi, I'm Scott Trade, and I'll do that same trade for $9. So those stockbrokers, well, they became obsolete like that. So what did they do? They became financial advisors. Financial advisors make money not by making trades, but by what they keep under management. So when you ask your advisor, most of which learn more and more about less and less till they know everything about nothing, and you'd say, I would like to buy some gold. And he would say, well, of course buy GLD. You don't want to call a company like Miles Franklin and store it. It'll get stolen from you, blah, blah, blah. So they try to keep it under management, right? So they can retain that commission. That's human nature. I get it. Everyone has to feed their family.
So lo and behold, if it's all there, you have the first or second largest stockpile of silver in the world. Who's holding that? Ooh, J.P. Morgan. You ever heard the story of the fox in the hen house? And who's managing the fifth or sixth largest stockpile of gold in the world? HSBC Bank, the other fox. It's the fox's brother.
That's Deutsche Bank's co-defendant.
There you go. So here you have two of the most nefarious, admittingly crooked, when it comes to precious metals, banks in the world safeguarding these two funds. So how about this for a solution? You got these funds that attract all the gold and silver because the people who designed it knew that that's what would ultimately happen when the dollar goes to hell. They come in on a Friday night and you have $2 million in GLD and SLV combined. Monday morning, it's not there anymore. It's in your money market account. And they look at the world and they say, wait, we didn't break any laws or infringe any civil liberties. Now, did we? In fact, all we did was close GLD and SLV. You're free to go buy gold and silver from any company you'd like in the United States. If they activated eminent domain and took from us what has been our right to own for a long time when the rest of the world owns it, and countries like communist China promote it and endorse it, if our creditors feared Venezuelan-style nationalization of assets, it is game over. So how about creating two vehicles that allow them to nicely scoop it up, take it all, look the world in the face and still look pretty and have their cake and eat it too. When Andy talked about Occam's razor, it's the most obvious answer that prevails. To me, it's exactly why they made those two funds, to get all the gold and silver that all the big institutions put in one central spot, be able to take it without breaking any laws, pay everyone what their share price is worth in newly created dollars, not piss anybody off, and go buy the real thing. Sell that GLD tomorrow, whether you buy it from me or someone else, buy the real thing, because if things get bad, do you want stock in Kellogg's or boxes of Frosted Flakes? One other thing, when you sell GLD, do you know you are not eligible for the capital gains rate? You have to pay the collectible rate, as if you sold a $5 million St. Gaudens. Point to you is that GLD and SLV are bad things, and in my opinion, the tool for confiscation. So, in a very long-winded answer, please go out and get some cash, and who cares what the bank says to you? Who cares if they get your social security number? It is your right to have your money in cash. Do not get it in $100 bills. Take a $100 bill and go buy a bagel tomorrow morning and look at the look the person gives you when you give them that $100 bill. Like you've just shot them. They just have to give you everything. Fine, take it. You know, and so my point to you is that get small bills, be able to transact business, get gold and silver while you still can. Who knows what's going to happen? But where there's smoke, there is fire. That I do believe.
I was going to throw in this. And of course, the fact that GLD and SLV can't have all the gold and silver they say, it's impossible. They actually bought up all that they say they have, the price would be dramatically higher. There's not that much supply out there. So atop all of their other issues, if they ever got audited or if there was ever a run on it, you'd find that they have a lot less gold and silver in there. So as an investor, that's yet another risk. And the funny thing is, you know, this question came up, well, what about negative interest rates and the war on cash? And I went, oh, wait, isn't that like 2 months ago? Wasn't that an issue 2 months ago? Forgot all about that cataclysmic issue about people losing money in the banks. And guess what? You know, since that's happened 2 months ago, that was at the bottom of the stock market. And yes, they pushed the stock market up against the worst fundamentals ever. And they have capped gold. It's about the same price as it was when that happened. So I guess all is well in the world. The only problem is interest rates are a lot lower than they were 2 months ago. In fact, I just saw yesterday, I couldn't believe it. I didn't know Japan had a 40-year bond. Longest we have is a 30-year bond. It's now yielding, I think, 20 basis points for a 40-year bond in the most hyperinflated currency in history. So interest rates around the world are at an all-time low. In fact, I think the average interest rate in Germany, the biggest economy in Europe, is negative right now. And eventually, it'll be everywhere. Look, the United States, a 10-year bond is 1.8%. So while everyone, you know, talk about misdirection because they're watching the stock market, everyone forgot all about negative interest rates when, in fact, they've gone much lower interest rates since that time. The Bank of the ECB has lowered interest rates even further into negative territory. The Bank of Japan next week may go even further as well. So again, no one's watching what's really happening, but this is a real problem. I mean, banks in the United States right now are essentially negative interest rates because they charge you fees. They give you nothing and they charge you fees. And eventually, When the Fed is forced to join the party again of QE, overt QE that is, we're going to go negative here. And as far as I'm concerned, this to me, this whole war on cash, which again, like anything else the government does, like in late 2008 when they were debating in the House of Representatives the confiscation of IRAs, look it up, it's real. This is what they were debating 2 months ago when markets were down. And when they lose control again, I assure you they will debate it again, and it will come to pass that slowly but surely you will lose your ability to control your money because it will slowly but surely become digitized and illegal to use. You know, maybe it'll be fast and not slow and surely, but it will happen. And that is why, you know, since that time, physical gold and silver demands, since 2 months ago while everyone's watching the stock market, has surged. Has anyone seen Bitcoin breaking out tonight? People are scared around the world right now about losing their money to the banks and to negative interest rates.
Great question, by the way.
Yeah, really good question. So we're going to take one more before the break. We're going to break in a couple of minutes. Please.
I'm Rory.
I'm sorry, what is that?
Rory.
Rory. Oh, I know you. Okay.
So, what is the best way to buy small dollar size amounts of silver, for example? Like every paycheck, I want to buy 1 to 2 ounces of silver. And also, what would it take for Miles Franklin to suspend sales when it's not worth receiving? You don't want to receive bigger money.
Okay.
So the question?
Let's just repeat the question.
The question was, if on a limited income, what kind of silver should I buy? And what would it take for Miles Franklin to limit sales? A couple of things. First of all, there's no right or wrong answer to buying any type of silver, but in my opinion, in this industry more than others, get what you pay for. I hope someone asks me later tonight about traveling with gold and my experiences with $300,000 in gold in the Montreal airport. But it all revolves around legal tender coins. For my money, 10 times out of 10, I would buy American Eagle or a Canadian Maple Leaf or an Australian Kangaroo or something of the like. It's an oxymoron kind of thing that most of my clients abhor government and government policy, but definitely prefer government coins. There are benefits to them, and they cost a little bit more, but you get what you pay for. You get it back when you sell it. They're far more sought after. They're far more in demand and less subjective. So for my money, I would only stick Pepsi, Coke, and Sprite, US, Canada, Australia. Those are my 3 choices above all else. As far as what would it take for me to limit sales? So the difference between me and a small coin shop is this. A small coin shop has a limited amount of money that they can buy and sell. I remember a few years back, when 2008, when it was hard to get things, a buddy of mine who owns a coin store in Colorado said he doesn't want to he wants to put a sign on the door saying all we do is buy, we won't sell, because he'd be sold out in days. You can't get it. The difference is that a small coin company can only do what their cash flow allows them to do. A larger company who employs hedging strategies, as we do, can take any size order. And explain what hedging is, and then I'll tell you why I would suspend delivery. Hedging means, in a nutshell, you give me 100 ounces of gold, goes into my warehouse, and I'm sitting on your 100 ounces of gold, right? Exact same time I buy that 100 ounces of gold from you, I sell 100 ounces on paper. Here's the reason why. The next morning, gold goes up by $100, and you call me up and you say, come on, man, can you hook me up? Gold went way up. Come on, just give me a few extra bucks. You're going to make $100 more on that stuff I sold you last night. And I'd say, no, I'm really not. Because what I did simultaneously was sell short, because what if it had gone down $100? You're not going to call me up and say, come on, man, I'll give you some money back. It's not how it happens. So what happens is that we have to hedge our position, remain market neutral. In order to remain market neutral, there has to be an active market in futures, COMEX. All of a sudden, the market goes crazy and the COMEX is rendered obsolete and there is no hedging ability, then I better have money cleared in my bank before I sell you anything. Miles Franklin does things that many of my contemporaries think is very foolish. They call me idiot, actually, to my face. some of the other guys I know that own companies, because when you call me up, I'm a relation-based guy. Screw me once and we'll never do business again. But if not, I'm your best friend. You call me anytime and I will be there for you. And you say to me, please lock this in now. And it's locked in. If you don't pay, I'm on the hook. So when it comes to hedging, I can do any size order, buy or sell, and remove the risk. But if there's no hedging available, if the markets become disorderly, then I can't lock anything in on your word, because who knows what your word will be worth in a world that's gone crazy. So bottom line is that the only thing that I could see that would enable me to stop taking orders is a very unorderly marketplace whereby I have to have cash in hand cleared before I can even take the risk of going out and buying the product, because if it goes the opposite way and you disappear, I'm out. If that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. And like Andy started the session saying, bullion dealers come and go. As we know, it's unusual for one to stay around as long as Miles Franklin with 0 complaints. Look him up on the good old Better Business Bureau, which I don't think much of. It's basically a shakedown racket. But if you get complaints against you, they will put them up there. And
we've never even had one amicably resolved complaint. BBB, if you have a complaint, they give you the chance to resolve it. We haven't even pissed off one person enough to file a complaint. I'm very proud of that. Given the opportunity to do business with any of you, you'll see that to be true. We're a relationship business in a world gone digital. We're the local hardware store next door to the Home Depot. And, if any of you have ever booked a trip or booked a hotel on like hotels.com and then there's a problem, you realize real quick what a mistake that was. And you wish you would have gone to American Express or directly to the hotel. Don't be penny wise and pound foolish. And that's what has enabled us to stick around for 27 years, coming from absolutely nothing.
Well, many of the competitors, both past and perhaps some present, will wind up having their striped suits furnished compliments of the U.S. government. And so always something to keep in mind. So a break. I've got some of my books here. Forget Wall Street, Go with the Gold and Silver Too, that I wrote a few years ago that I think is becoming really timely. So anybody wants it, they're $20 each. I'll be up front here. And hey, everybody having a good time?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So we're going to do about a 15-minute break there. People at home, please keep sending those questions. You see I'm doing a real bad job of filtering them. I'll read the one that was a little nasty about me in a little while. And hey, it's all in good nature. We're here to learn and to teach, and that goes both ways. So again, everybody, thanks for being here. Go have a refreshment, take a bathroom break. In 20 minutes, we will be back here. It's going good. I mean, there's still 200. Oh, well, they're hearing me now. So, guys, there's still 198 of you here. 198 of you here. Send me some more questions and feedback. I'm sorry about the audio and the sound quality issues. I tested stuff out, but it's different in the room here when there's actually people. So I'm going to leave a live mic feed and a live video feed while I sign books. If anybody wants the book, send me an email. I'll send you a PayPal link, and we'll shoot it right out to you.
Do you need this?
Well, we didn't hook it up. We can do it for the second half. Okay, thank you. Let's see what happens with the takeout.
I never thought it would happen.
We need to plug it into a power strip. Oh, how's it going?
So far, so good.
Great.
This is the
Yeah, they're really good. I'm using it. I'm telling you. You know, I'm always on the lookout for doing due diligence on them because I do believe.
I told people, I said, do your due diligence, call them, question them, whatever you want. So far from me, it's working.
Great. All right, so we got books up here. Anybody interested in a copy of my book? Here I am.
Barry, my name's Troy. I live down in the Keys. Listen to you.
We exchange emails before I try.
Maybe about this, that's about
Yeah.
it. But I listen to you every night.
Oh, great.
About 5 sites on Wednesday night.
Oh, great.
Rubino on Monday nights. And, so enjoy it. I appreciate it. I
Great.
mainly came. I just want to meet you and tell you I appreciate your deal.
So, yeah, down in the Keys is nice, huh?
Well,
Away from
I left at 11
civilization.
o'clock and I got here at 6. Get to the that
Where are you,
accident
Key West?
Almost Sugarloaf.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, but that was the easy part. I was in Dade County. I was at the Dade County line in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
At 2.
Car
But the,
Yeah.
oh,
You hit
I don't know how you do
that
it.
accident. Well, I
Yeah, I'll
try to
turn by.
avoid it. I got a client in Lauderdale here. I live up north, northern Palm Beach County, and usually I can make it in an hour. But, you know, I take the turnpike. You never know what's going to happen here. It's the worst.
Well, we
Worst
watched the
traffic.
news 6 o'clock. There'll be an accident on 95. Shows the we just you forget. I haven't been even out of the Keys in a year and a half.
Uh-huh.
I come up here and I go, I just want to say hi. I appreciate what you do.
Hey, man, I
Thank you
appreciate
very
that.
much. I
Great.
appreciate it.
Oh, one of those things. Oh, wait until we come back. Hey.
Whatever it is.
Hey. Sure, yeah, we've emailed, right? Yeah, sure. That's great to meet you. Where do you live? Oh, okay, so not too far. An easier ride than coming from Miami today to here, that's for sure. So, cool. Great to meet you.
This is as far as the court. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow.
Well, we don't care about that.
Did I give you the card? And
Helping them resolve their settlement. Single word there. Amazing that they were doing here. I raised and it comes around some legal statements and everything. Now it's $5 million. It's $300 million. They will get privately owned busted. The notes will come back. So not only do they collect and whatever, credit defaults well. They use these as collateral. Credits like this, they're denying $300 million fine. They never pay darn. Nothing goes
Yeah,
to you.
I see, but I wonder if one of them use it perhaps. Just two different aspects. Yep, look at that.
Pretty cool. They have no idea, and all the intelligence, nice and smart people have, but they have no idea. It's so compartmentalized. What's the turnout? Right. It's like all the governments are all conspiring. All the currencies.
One's up there.
we're going on the podium.
So they all want. We need one more. Did you check the gift shop and see if they got any?
Yeah, where is it? Somewhere in the front? Okay.
Yeah, I love that guy's name.
What time is it? Almost 8:30.
It's like, it's not even worth talking about. Like, because it's just, you know, when you're in charge like this, you get whatever you want.
Yes. Former, recovering.
I've been wondering about the legality of American silver angels since they're legal tender.
Wall Street isn't even.
Yeah. We'll ask him about that. They're theoretically legal tender, but nobody's going to take them. Right? It's $1. It says it's worth $1.
Right.
But in point of fact,
Taxes on it, or since it's a currency, is it taxable because it's a currency? I mean, they wouldn't tax it $20 bill.
let's address that to Andy after this break. Okay? Andy Schectman, because I don't know the answer to it. I mean, I don't think you could have to pay any tax on, on money per se, but if it's collectible and it falls into a different realm, so I don't know exactly. But there's also issues about traveling with it because legal tender. Why not? So,
Like assuming that the price of silver skyrockets, you buy it at $15 and now it's worth $150. You have to pay capital gains tax.
there's no capital gains. They're treated as basically collectible, ordinary income.
But there's a collectible tax if you claim it as a collectible, which is pretty steep.
I think it's the same as ordinary income.
I think it's a 30%, something like that.
I'm not sure. Well, ask Andy about
Okay,
it.
all right.
He's the expert.
Okay, thank you.
So, anybody wants any books? We got some up here. I'll sign it, autograph it.
Kerry, I'm just gonna run that back.
Sure.
Kerry?
Let's see. Still got 184 of you out there. Let's see. We got any new questions? Okay, let's see what we got. It's your new thing. Okay, Chandu out there, we will ask your question about that. And Brandon will be answering a couple of your questions as well. Haven't forgotten about you. And yes, that was Rory Hall there. You know him, I take it. Yes, I was going to mention link about safes, demand for safes skyrocketing in Japan. Safes are something I know a lot about. I don't like to talk about them for obvious reasons. If you want to know about safes, what kind you should buy, how you should have it installed, where to get them, other security issues, just send me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. Let's see what else we got here. Orange jumpsuits. It was really great, those comments. I'm really enjoying them. Quite an anti-government, irreverent crowd there. So, hey, let's hear from you here. Want to hear what you have to say. And Marlene, you're saying that the rule of thumb is that the bank pays you 0% interest. The bank owns the money. You take cash out of the bank, and you still get 0%, but you have all your money. The bank has none, and that is a great point, which is one of the reasons why they want to eliminate currency, so that you don't have that option. There's a lot of other aspects involved. I'm about to take a break. Talk to you guys in a couple of moments. Thank you all for hanging in with all the technical issues. I told them I thought we should just huddle together, but wasn't really practical at the beginning, but now we'll just kind of stay together. Hopefully getting a decent video image. Based on what I'm seeing here, the video looks pretty decent. Some feedback on the sound quality. Let me know what's going on with that. Get food. Food and ammo. Yeah, Tony, I totally agree with you there. Food and ammo, good things. Ballistic precious metals. One of my former guests used to call them. Harder and harder to get in certain places, even in Florida. And but I always said the 9mm exchange rate, and I was going to publish a sheet on it. How much a beer, how many rounds of 9mm ammo a beer would cost, and all that kind of stuff, but kind of never got around to it. How does Miles Franklin deal with a customer wanting to sell back to them? Yeah, they're going to, it's going to be a negotiated transaction. You'll either like their price or you won't. And if you don't like it, then you don't sell it back to them. It's kind of that simple. But they're, I'll ask Andy about what they pay for buybacks. They don't have a lot of them, but let's face it, there's some people who have been disposing of metal over the past 3 years, for sure. Who is the current speaker? That's me, Kerry Lutz. All right, so be back in 5 minutes, guys. Stick around. The best is yet to come. We'll probably go for about another hour. And great. Want a book? Okay. Well, let me grab a pen.
So they're cashing in the treasury slowly, but interest rates are not going up.
That's why they do it slowly. If they dump it, they spike. But if they do it slowly, besides,
But they
you got
did
the
700 billion.
but you got the Fed buying the back end. keeping
But it's
rates
not
down.
you don't see it on their books.
That's right. Well, it's because they're done off of banks in the Bahamas or what have you.
Steve.
Most of the or it's the Belgium buys it. Why is Belgium the second or third largest holder of our treasuries? So they're being bought up and not being put on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
they're not showing up anywhere.
But believe me, they're selling.
$70 there. Great. So we got you in the database. Yeah, we do take Bitcoin also. Yeah, do it.
Is that the
Learn
same
how to
as
do it.
Bitcoin?
No, Bitcoin's different. You can use Bitcoin to buy Bitcoin. I don't know how safe it is. I don't know if it hasn't been hacked. I don't know what to tell you. Let's see what we've got here. So thank you.
On my card there, let me
Yeah.
put the email.
Oh, sure. Oh, you're probably in the email in the system, right? right.
Well, I am with Miles Franklin.
Is this your card?
Yeah.
Okay. I've collected a few of them. Nice blazer, Kerry. Thank you. Thank you. I purchased this blazer on eBay and got a pretty decent deal on it. Harder to find decent clothes on eBay these days, but basically, if you know your size and you know what brand fits you, and you got a good tailor at home, you can get good deals there. I mean, I bought at least a dozen, maybe 2 dozen jackets there. That's kind of my thing. Also buy some shoes there, new shoes, no used clothing. The concept of used clothing I'm not really thrilled with, but hey, Link, thank you very much. Jeff, you're more than welcome. I'm really sorry about the technical issues. I haven't done this before. I'm not making excuses, but anyways, so Buck. Okay, Buck. All right. What's your name?
John. The lefty, huh, Kerry?
Yeah, I can't help that.
Yeah. I think these guys said they're lefties too.
I know, isn't that strange?
Yeah.
It's really weird. Me, my brother, and sister, all lefties.
Funny, right?
And yeah, thanks. We're all lefties. All three of us, both my parents are righties.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to you lefties out there, I want to send me questions here about what a pain in the neck it is being a lefty. So, and both Andys are lefties, and I'm a lefty. I don't know what it means, but it must mean something. All right, 3 more minutes. I'm going to go grab a drink. I'll be right back. Hey, thanks.
This is the battery that Kerry asked. I don't know. He found that.
Sure. Pretend you got a question on there that says.
Okay. Okay. And we're going to talk also shortly about traveling with gold. Issues involved there. There's a lot of issues. I've done it before. I've been harassed at the airport after the Silver Summit when I purchased rounds, and it came up on the X-ray. So, what's that dark stuff? And then it was amazing. I said I just bought some silver. He said, "Oh, you were here at the Silver Summit." I couldn't believe that a TSA agent actually knew about the Silver Summit. In Spokane when they used to hold when David was still David Morgan was kind of involved in it. And we got in a whole conversation. So I always used to carry like 2 rounds with me. I stopped doing it. I don't know if I lost them or
You
what
will
happened.
love my story. It'll blow you away.
I go into a courthouse, Palm Beach County Courthouse one day. I'm going to file some papers. And I says, there's some really interesting coins. I said, they're just silver rounds because one day when your paper money becomes worthless, this is what people are going to use. He looked at me like I was from another freaking planet. Like I was a nut job. I never had anybody look that way.
I have a quick question. What do you guys think about kind of back into Jersey with gold on Tuesday?
We're going to talk about that book. You just doing a book?
I think ultimately it will be the only way that any currency is taken legitimate.
So how do you think that's going to, and it's supposed to announce how much gold it has in the bar or something like that, and the IMF is going to start using their currency something like that?
I have not heard, admittingly so, but I do think it will be part of the it will be part of the nexus, and they did say it.
Well, the IMF accepted China as a member of the IMF and as part of the basket of currencies.
Right.
Right when it started crashing, of course.
I think the whole Asian infrastructure banks are replace IMF and the development banks.
Yeah, they're doing it slowly and methodically, putting everything in place, building their infrastructure, gathering all of the things they need, and then they'll be in a position to say, see ya, we're going off
It's a
on
race
our own.
against time, though.
Yeah.
It really is a race against
Well, you
time.
think it's accelerating?
There's a
Because
curse
they
war.
can't. Well, there's limited because there's no real confidence in Taiwan as an international. There's hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars that go to sleep every night, and money managers aren't putting them in the Chinese system at this point. That's not to say it won't happen in the future, but for right now, you have no choice.
Right.
So
That's why the dollar is what it's doing when it's doing. Right.
right.
the
That's why
nicest
they're
house in the
reserve
crap in
currency. And Bob, Bob Boy?
No.
He's a guy from Vancouver, long-term financial guy. He's in his 70s, great guy. But he actually has gone back and done all the research on every credit bust since Tulip Mania. And what happens in every credit bust, at least initially afterwards, is that the reserve currency strengthens.
I believe that.
Yeah,
That's what Mike Mahoney was saying.
right.
Yes.
Mike Mahoney was saying stuff like that.
That's why I say have a bunch of cash and small cash, because it's not going to implode all at once and everything go to hell. There'll be time, and you're going to need to transact.
Yep. There's a period of transition where
Yes.
the mighty dollar is going to go up and everybody's going to seek for it. Because that's what Jim Raj is saying too.
I believe it to be true.
see
That's why I would have,
What's that?
Monty money stocks between new
on hand, small bills as you can
Uh,
have.
I'm sorry,
I have
new bottoms.
new bottoms. I think they might have hit their new bottom already. Yeah, we could be in the midst of the bull market and mining shares, but if the broad general market gets
food and lead and gold and
mining
water,
stocks are just stocks.
vitamins, all sorts of stuff. What's colludes? Big deal. So you eat it.
Very possible.
It's not a big deal.
Right.
Right. That they've hit their bottoms.
What's your name?
Okay,
My
so
name's
you're
David.
either gonna
I'm actually
David, next
I'm actually
month.
a friend of mine.
Oh, are you? I
Yeah.
love Rick. I owe Rick a
That's
lot.
not my thing.
His firm has done a lot for me. They do their business through me, and
No.
God bless
I just
every
want
one
to
of
make
their
some money on that
brokers.
so I can buy
It's-
gold with.
I consider the crowning achievement of my career the fact that they work with me.
People better at that.
He's a good guy. Just saw him the other day in California.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
Thank you. Yeah, you went at the conference, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it very much. Glad that you're here and ask some questions.
Yeah, it's interesting how the pension fund is going to have to readjust for all the negative interest rates.
The pension funds are in big trouble. They're in a
I know.
world of it. Not just pension funds. How about fixed annuities
Yes,
and all of these things that are based upon projections that are known as this. So yeah, I think it's gonna. These are, as the Chinese curse says, "May you live in interesting times." They're gonna be
We're in
anything
history.
but dull and complacent.
Yeah, that's I have a journal,
You have a journal, and you publish this journal, or is it just a private?
private journal. It's going to be one for the history class.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. I should probably teach one myself.
People can look back and say, well, this is what's happening.
Yeah, that's
The day-to-day event.
very cool. Very cool.
Well, see history.
Okay, we're gonna get started again. It's time. Everybody, please grab a seat. Let's get started. Okay. I say we'll go till the questions are up, but anyway. Also, listen. Tomorrow, I was thinking of having a meetup of anybody who's interested. We meet at the bar in there at around 5 o'clock. Can I get a show of hands? Anybody's interested in getting together? Anybody? One person? Anybody? Two?
Gary's buying.
Three? I didn't say I was buying, but I'll provide the appetizers. Pardon me? Oh, 5 o'clock tomorrow, like happy hour. We meet at the bar over here, and just to get together. Anybody interested? Show of hands. All right. We got a little lukewarm interest here. Anybody? In the hotel here. Okay. So 5 o'clock by the bar, happy hour in the hotel, and yeah, it'd be great. Good to see you all staying over here tonight, but back home in the morning, but I'll be back by 5. So, any questions, any issues? So we got somebody at the podium here. let's just see if my recorder is actually processing. Is it doing that? All right, so we'll get to it here. So we still have a lot of people at home. That's the amazing thing. We've had a couple hundred people watching this all over the world. Thailand, Australia, New Zealand. I saw these emails coming in the registration. It's pretty amazing. So as many people are here, there's almost twice as many people, wherever, watching and participating. So let's, since there's so many of you out there and you put up with awful sound quality and pretty rotten video quality and everything else. Oh, sorry. Can you guys hear me? Can everybody hear me? Yeah? I'll turn up the mixer if you want. Hold on a second. I didn't understand that. All right. I don't want to do it too loud because then it reverberates for the. How's that? Better? Better? Better, 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 better. Okay, well, it's got to be there. Now I'm going to get complaints from the remote viewers, but hey, you guys didn't pay to be here, the remote viewers. Then again, nobody did. So, hey, what can I tell you? You get what you pay for. So, but seriously, now, the situation that the world, the country finds itself in, it's pretty damn serious. And recently, there was an article that I picked up someplace that said the reason why Donald Trump is succeeding is because Americans have a false sense of crisis. How many of you believe that the crisis that you don't think it's real? How many believe we're really in a legitimate crisis in this country? Well, I think this is a slightly biased group. Obviously, that's why you're here. So, but, I read this article. Forget about Trump. If you listen to FSN, we talk about politics, but strictly as a function of the economy. One guy is worse than the next. Just when you think you couldn't get any worse, we get somebody worse. And then when he leaves, you think it can't get any worse than this. It can't. And what happens? So, Andy's got his views about the Donald. I know the Donald. Did some work for him once upon a time, about 15 years ago. I just think he's the best thing to happen to television entertainment, because you've got this whole new format of entertainment called political entertainment. Usually you'd watch these politicians and you would just turn the thing off because they're all lying. And so, my good friend, the gentleman from Mississippi, and on the real inside, if you could hear what was going on in the guy's mind, I want to kill that no good such and such. There's no authenticity, nothing. And then you have the Donald who just, hey, it's Lion Ted, it's Crooked Hillary, it's Little Marco, and Low Energy Jeb. I mean, think about that. It's totally changed the whole thing. As far as anything happening, I'd love to see him make America great again, but that, he's not Moses. He's not going to part the seas, and, he's just not going to do it. I'd love to think that he would. Hey, everybody would vote for him probably, but, the reality is, whether he gets elected or not, what's really going to change? I've seen too many guys come and go, to believe and hope and change from any politician who's promising it. So on that note, we got more questions. You've been standing there a while, so the questions coming in from home, they're sitting around on the couch or God knows what they're doing. So you deserve a break. Your name, please.
My name is Bob. I'd like to know if there is any advantage in purchasing a silver miner box, silver monster box,
Monster box,
as opposed to other silver coins.
Well, our bullion dealer's right here. Honestly, that is a marketing term. Like on eBay, you see it. And what the hell is a monster box anyway? It's just, they never tell you exactly how many ounces are in it. There's always information lacking. If they're selling rounds, then, right, depending where the rounds are from, all the other issues.
It's American Eagles.
Not just American Eagles. Not just hang on. Not just American Eagles.
That's the one.
Okay, not just American Eagles. Anything that comes out of the United States Mint, anything, comes in boxes of 500 ounces, whether it be 500 Silver Eagles, 500 1-ounce Gold Eagles, 5,000 1/10 ounce Gold Eagles. Anything that comes in a sealed box is called a monster box. The Canadian Mint does the same thing. The Austrian Mint does it. Typically, you get a break if you buy 500 ounces or more. It's a little bit less money. And typically, those boxes are sealed. They have a strap across them. It's akin to having a box of baseball cards from 1930 never been opened. I wouldn't open the box unless you had to. If I bought 5 boxes, monster boxes of Silver Eagles, I'd open up 1 box, look at the coins inside, and leave the other 4 sealed. But in reality, a monster box is just how they package it, and everything comes, no matter what it is, gold, platinum, or silver, in boxes of 500. And that's the term, mint box, monster box, same thing.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Jim Rivers described it as 500 American Eagles.
Well, it's true, or it's 500 Canadian Maples, or 500 Austrian Philharmonics. It's true. It is a monster box. That is the name for it. But it's a generic term meaning 500 ounces in a sealed box from a sovereign mint.
Thank you.
Yep. Unfortunately, on eBay, it's distorted that, and anything that has like a lot in it is a monster box there. So, the technical term, yes, but the way it's used, just, do a search on eBay and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And they're not sealed, and none of it means anything. So, anyways, all right, one more question, then we'll go to the home audience there. Your name?
I have a couple of questions
Sure.
regarding the Shanghai Gold Exchange. So it's only been about 2 days. It's a physical selling market. I'm curious from maybe point of how the actual process of settlement is going to work, and how you think that may affect the actual price of stock. There's a real price. Secondly, you also mentioned that you think it's the Chinese accumulating all the precious metals. Is this any indication that they want true price discovery to happen? And if they do, that would indicate they're going to accumulate it, not more accumulation to go. So,
The Chinese will never stop accumulating because they consider gold money. They also have a hyperinflating central bank. So that's part one.
Let's just repeat the question.
Oh, sorry.
So the Shanghai Gold Exchange, I think we should lump in with that the new yen fix in gold, and then when are they going to stop accumulating? I guess is the other part of it.
Right. The first question about what is the fix? How do they do it? I think it's funny they call it the fix because that's exactly what it is. It's creating a price that has nothing to do with what the market price is. I, from the life of me, have no idea why they've ever done this, and why they continue to do it. You have a market price for gold and silver, and if you want to exchange it, say, at 1 o'clock, whatever the price is, then we'll exchange it at that. I don't see why you need a bunch of bankers to sit around and decide the price is different. And one of their fatal flaws, be it on purpose or not, was this insane silver fix that they did. I think it was about January 28th in London. Again, even from a manipulation, conspiratorial standpoint, I can't imagine what they were thinking when they overtly priced the physical fix 6% below the prevailing market price, arbitrarily without any explanation. And maybe 2 days later, 5 of the biggest miners on the London Bullion Exchange, who basically have been fleeced for all these years, stepped down, resigned, and said, we're never trading here again. One of them being Rio Tinto, which is the second largest miner in the world. And frankly, silver isn't even a big part of what they do. They do a lot of other metals. I wrote the very next day, the biggest news in gold history, because I knew that that was a big deal. Once people are starting to realize that this is a fix, there's no reason to be trading in these paper games that have nothing to do with reality. And sure enough, that marked an important bottom, because a couple of days later you had that giant move up where gold went up $50 in one day. What is going on in Shanghai? I don't know how they do it or why they do it, but the main reason that they created is because they're tired of the price being set in the United States. The United States is a very marginal buyer of precious metals. It's an extremely marginal producer of precious metals, and frankly, they despise precious metals, and anyone in the world knows that the price is manipulated here. I mean, every single day it's the same thing. And so basically the Chinese have been accumulating for, generations, but certainly in the past 15 or 20 years, the Chinese government has gone crazy. They've been the biggest producer in the world. They don't let any of the gold out of the country. In fact, they've been producing gold at a loss for many years just so they can accumulate gold. When they finally announced in November, I think it was, that they had 1,700 tons of gold, which was up from, I think it was 1,000 tons that they said 5 or 6 years ago. They only did that because they wanted to get into the strategic basket of the SDR and be accepted in the big boys club. And right after that, they started accumulating on a monthly basis. I believe the Chinese have 10, 20, 30,000 tons of gold. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chinese, between the government and the people, have a third of all the world's gold. And the Indians probably have a third of it too. There's that little of it out here. So why are they doing it? One, they're doing it because they believe that the price should be set where the market is, so that one day we're going to wake up here in the United States, as we actually have the last few days, and see what happened overnight, as opposed to waking up here and waiting to see what will happen on the comics. And as for the Chinese, they know what the future is because they have had the longest history with fiat currency failure ever. So they will never stop accumulating, and not just for government purposes, because they know, unlike the Westerners here that believe in Keynesianism, to answer someone's questions, where the state of the monetary world is going.
Yeah, and I think reasonable explanation makes the most sense. We've got a question here. Am I nuts, or is anybody else out here? That's somebody at home who we were taking our break. That's kind of the way I feel every day when I do the show. Am I crazy, or is there anybody out there listening? And the amazing thing, like Andy knows, and from writing his daily, commentary, from doing his audio blogs, more and more of you out there are listening. There's no question about it. I mean, so many conferences went to over the past 5 years, they're no longer around, or very few people show up. And these are conferences sponsored by the mining industry. They're like dead. I mean, now maybe they'll start coming back to life. We hope so, because mining is really vital to the world economy. And without mining, we got big problems. So there's got to be some incentives in there. But when you got a crazy currency unit, crazy things happen. So, question about the Baltic Dry Index. Folks, say the shipping blah, blah, blah was at 260-ish, then climbed to 659. If things are so bad, why is the BDI going back up? Well, the price of oil is going back up too. Commodities might be entering a new cycle, but Andy, both watched the Baltic Dry Index. Your take on it?
Right. Again, the Baltic Dry Index, which is a comprehensive measure of shipping, meaning on ships, not shipping from trucks, but shippings overseas on boats. It measures a variety of factors, incorporating day rates, meaning how much they cost per day. Also supply factors. For instance, if a lot of boats are built and there's an oversupply, it can go down even if the demand doesn't change. So it can be a bit misleading to look at it, generally speaking. Also, why is it going up? Well, first of all, it peaked a few years ago at 12,000 and hit an all-time low only 2 months ago of 200. That's a real decline in global trade activity, and it's just as much about demand as it is about supply. The fact that it went back up to 600 is simply because it's seasonal. You look at the chart every year; it has the same patterns every year. There's a slow season and a fast season. So it's at a the prototypical lower low, 600. And by the way, all the other indices of global trade, like the Chinese Containerized Freight Index and Rail Index, all those things, they're all at record lows right now. So it doesn't mean anything at all. And if you look at the earnings of truckers and shippers and railways across the globe, you'll see that no one is looking at the Baltic Dry Index's dead cat bounce from a 40-year all-time low as meaning anything.
Yeah, that is a great point. Markets, when they crash, they always rise higher. Here's another one from Jeff out there. I see real property as being just a piece of paper, deed, which can be made null by a tyrannical regime like in Russia. What is a good exit strategy when the metals become overvalued? So that is a great question. Real estate, forget about that. But the question is, how long do you hold your metal for? Is there an exit strategy here? You just pass it on to your children.
Yeah, I mean, typically, in the back of my mind's eye, I see maybe blue chip stocks trading at single-digit price to earnings ratios and paying a 7 or 8% dividend, or maybe it's that villa in Vail that I've always wanted that's trading or selling for a couple ounces of gold, or maybe I don't do anything with it and I pass it on to my children. And if I have it, I'm damn glad I have it. And if not, it's a way to privately pass money on to future generations. But typically, I think markets go from fair value to overvaluation and then correct back through fair value to undervaluation. We see that all the time. There will be values to be had, and that's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to be faced with, and who can see the end game in a crazy world like we're faced with? But to have options when others don't is the most important thing. It's like back in a long time ago when they hunted porcupine, the guy would sneak up, or gal would sneak up behind the porcupine with a wash tub, very quietly, throw it over, and sit on the wash tub. And then you have options. You can deliberate what you're going to do while the porcupine's under the wash tub. But if you're chasing the porcupine, good luck. So my point to you is have options when others will have none.
My answer to that would be it's no different than when you ask, no one ever says, what's your exit strategy for that cash you have in the bank? At some point you're going to want to sell it for something. That's what gold and silver are. They're my money. I don't sit there and think when I'm going to sell it. Certainly not in this environment where I think that we're probably going to hyperinflate the currencies away. But even if I wasn't that worried about something like that, I have more faith in physical gold and silver as money than anything else, which is why it's my biggest position. I don't even consider it a position. It's my savings. I will sell it when I find something worthy of selling it for. That may be an inheritance to my daughter. It may be, for as Andy says, stocks, real estate, or whatever I think is worth doing. But I'm certainly not going to trade it for another currency until that currency is backed by something that's as sound as gold.
And we will see when that day arrives. So, Andy, do you think China will back its currency with, let's ask, got somebody here waiting for a question. So tell us your first name and what's your question?
Yeah, I have two questions. One is, if you wanted to present an argument to somebody regarding wall storage, how would you justify that? How would you explain it exactly safe? The other question I have is in regards to what policy we have.
Sorry, go ahead. Okay, so vault storage, how do you explain the benefits of that? And the second question?
About
BitGold. Okay, well, two good questions. Vault storage, well, I can tell you, safe deposit boxes in a bank, there's issues there. Look, a couple months ago, the kind-hearted folks at JP Morgan Chase decided they didn't really want you to store cash in your safe deposit box or bullion unless it was collectible coins. And why would they do something like that? What is the point? On the other hand, burying it in your backyard, not necessarily the best solution there. Home safes issues there. Home safe's only good if nobody knows you have it. So keeping it in your house. So storage options, Andy, I think we should address that.
Sure. So first and foremost, you should only store gold at a depository if you're losing sleep at night keeping it at home. And there's lots of ways you can hide it at home. You can get real creative. You can get a decoy safe. You have a safe in your office or your basement that's filled with enough stuff that would appease any idiot who tries to break into your house.
That's fine.
The little itty bitty safe like that you can put a handgun in. Typically, they have bolts on the inside of those safes, and you can bolt it to a stud in your attic under the insulation, under a floorboard, behind a piece of sheetrock. You could put $1 million worth of gold in there. If you put it all in that one safe, well, probably not a good idea. As far as depositories are concerned, this is the reason we partnered with Brinks. We have Brinks facilities in Montreal and in Vancouver, and I partnered with a company that has a reputation to precede it, a 100-year reputation to precede it. I would never put my gold or silver anywhere in Delaware. That's just me. I would not put my gold or silver anywhere on the eastern seaboard. That's just me. We have a facility in North Dakota as well. Our business is in Minneapolis. I designed a business that allowed me to come to work without carrying an AR-15 on my shoulder every day. We office in a nice office building, and we run all of our logistics out of our facility in North Dakota. If you're going to store gold in the United States, I would choose some place like North Dakota, like Utah. There's a Brinks facility in Utah. There's the Dakota Depository in Fargo. Geographically in the United States, it's important. You don't want to be where all the other stuff is. Delaware Depository is the absolute worst because that's where all the IRA gold is, or the majority of it, or an awful lot of it, and it's got a big X on it. I think if you're going to store your stuff in a depository, go with a name that's trusted. Go with a location that's off the grid if it's in the States. And if you're going to store it outside the country, I've been able to help people store gold in Zurich for 20 years. Now we can do Hong Kong and Singapore. I don't store it in any 3 of those locations because to me, accessibility is important. I want to be able to get in my car and get it quickly. And that's why we like Canada because, well, especially being in Minnesota, we can get there pretty quick. But I think that if you're going to store it in a place that's reputable, and store it in a location that you feel comfortable with. Don't cut corners. That's our Brinks facility is a good choice, as is the Dakota Depository.
Okay, and I've got.
Oh, and as far as Bitcoin, I'll let Andy answer that.
Actually, it was BitGold was the question, and BitGold really, I mean, it's just another storage system as far as I'm concerned. Yes, they have the added ability to use it to purchase things if you could find people who would take it, and maybe one day they will. But for me, to me, it's just if you want to store it there, that's fine. But you're really just storing it with someone else. It's I won't say any more about it.
Okay, and sorry, Mike has a delay. Turning it off to stop the echo.
You can, by the way, you can listen to Peter Schiff's videos on BitGold. He'll have something to say about it.
Yeah. Well, I have like issues with all the cryptocurrencies. I kind of understand, and I actually own $120 worth of Bitcoin. I think it's up about $30 or $40 since I got it. So, but seriously, so I was looking for out-of-the-box solutions where to store your gold. So once upon a time, I used to like to go to the casino, and what I found out was that just about every decent casino has safe deposit boxes there, and they're free to Players Club members. And you just sign up at the Players Club, you get your box. The hitch is you're supposed to visit your box and open it once every 30 days, but you can stretch that out to 60, 90 days. I wouldn't go past that. So the box is free. It's behind the cage, behind the cashier. There's like a stack of boxes. Virtually every decent casinos, the smaller tribal ones, not so much. I think like the Hard Rock. So what do you get there? Well, It's free. You have 24/7 access to it. They're never closed. And you just go there. I mean, the odds of them ever breaking into a casino cashier's area and breaking open the safe deposit boxes are virtually nil. They've robbed casino cages, but they're just grabbing the loose cash. So it's just a cool way of doing it. And if you live nearby a decent casino, a few casinos, you can split it up there, and it's free. So that report's actually available on the site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. If you sign up for the newsletter, you get a free copy of it. And I wrote it like 3-4 years ago. And, you know, people in Vegas have written me, said, yeah, I did that. And, you know, you just have to remember where. Also, one other benefit to, there's a lot of casinos in Vegas. Yeah, I think it was at the Hard Rock. No, maybe it was Caesar's Palace.
It was the Desert Inn, and now it's gone.
Yeah, well, so yeah, obviously a bankruptcy of the company, liquidation, but you know, that's not just going to happen. The other really great thing about it, it's totally off the grid, meaning there's no reports, no forms to the government that we know of. Okay, you're in a computer, so obviously can be gotten there. And if you need a short-term solution to store it for a couple of weeks because you're moving or whatever, you're going to be out of your house and you don't feel real secure about it, you go take one out, leave it there for a few weeks till you figure out what else to do with it. Great for short-term. And best part, like this conference, free.
And for that matter, someone at, we were in San Diego, he came up to me and said, I don't know much about this stuff. I got a little gold, keep it in a storage locker in one of those rent-a places. I go, well, that's a brilliant idea. I mean, talk about being off the grid, no one would know about it. But, you know, everyone's laughing when we say, oh, I forget where you put it. That's the whole point of whatever you do with your money, whether it's cash or gold and silver, there's pros and cons to everything. You know, the propaganda that says, oh, you can't own gold, they'll steal it, like you were talking about with the brokers. You know, what about banks? They get bailed out, they get bailed in, they pay you nothing, they pay negative interest rates. They freeze your accounts. They have bank holidays. They say you can't have anything in any gold in your safe deposit box. That's major risk to me. We've seen that play out. I don't know anyone who's had gold stolen from their house. You know, you have to think about what the risks are of anything. You can put it in a storage locker, but you better be sure that you know where it is and someone else knows about where it is too. If you're going to put it in a Brinks facility, for instance, think about all the ramification. The best thing you can do, which we recommend to everyone, is to keep it at home as best protected as you can with only need-to-know people knowing about it. Otherwise, you know, we have options for you.
Okay, little more on safes. Also in Florida, we have this phenomena, and in certain other states you have it too, called the private safe deposit box company or depository. And there's two of them within 5 or 10 miles of this hotel. Both of them really good. One of them is like, it's like an automated kind of place. They store cars there, they store wine, and they've got a safe deposit box area, and they take your fingerprints, and it's all biometric stuff. The other one is kind of a little more old-fashioned. It reminds me of walking into like a bank in the 1960s. It even smells like it, kind of. But that safe deposit company, their physical facility, and it's easily accessible, is built to number 10 standards. They rate banks in terms of impregnability, 1 being the least, 10 being the most. And that facility is, I think they were rated 9 or 10. I mean, they've got a door on there that it looks like, you know, impregnable, basically, kind of like the Federal Reserve. But there's risks with everything. Don't put all your eggs in one basket because maybe the place goes out of business. You have to remember to pay your storage fees, or it escheats, meaning the state government gets your property and then you get to go apply to get your property back. So you always have to, and then like one other thing, if you're going to write stuff down, remember that everything you put in your smartphone is out there. So you're going to write down the location of this stuff, where it is. Don't be sending emails. Don't put it in your directory, or if you do, make some kind of code up for it. Don't leave a trail of breadcrumbs, because who the heck knows, everything is being monitored. For all we know, they're watching this now, and I hope they're enjoying it. So, next question.
Thank you. My name is Frank. I have a question about the bullion dealers you see on TV or advertising. I heard that they're trying to rip it off by selling your price collector's coins and things like that. And so, I can understand why they pay a heck of a lot of money to advertise on national cable, stuff like that. And then I can understand, I guess, why the networks themselves accept the money and, buy it Twitter, right? But there's just something that sticks in the back of my mind. That's what I believe in.
Let me just, what was your name again?
Grant.
Grant. Okay, great question, Grant. So the first question is these promoters on TV that you see, what was that, Goldline?
Goldline and Roslyn Capital.
Roslyn, yeah, that's one I just started seeing recently. I never heard of them before. That's the problem. It's like, oh yeah, where did they come from? And then the second thing is, why do the networks let them do it? Well, they want, the powers that be want the bullion dealing industry to be tarnished and portrayed in the worst possible light. And I'll let Andy take it from there.
Well, I once thought it would be neat to be on the Glenn Beck show. I called Fox and asked them, and I think this was maybe 7-8 years ago. You had to buy minimum of 45 slots for 30 seconds. They were $7,500 per 30-second ad. And someone's paying for those ads. In this industry, there's a fine line. In my life, it seems everywhere I turn, there's a fine line between conspiracy and reality. And I don't know if it's just coincidence or not, but I'll tell you an interesting little story. There's rumor, okay, now I can't substantiate this. Several years ago, Goldline, which is always the one that people call me upset about. The reason they call upset about Goldline is they list gold eagles real cheap. You call them about gold eagles and they'll say, well, you don't want gold eagles, you need proof gold eagles. Proof gold eagles are shinier in a velvet box and sold for twice the cost and not worth it. And anyways, they do bait and switch, and they do it at exorbitant markups. So many years ago, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, I don't know, Goldline was bought for about $50 million. And the rumor was it had ties. Please know this is rumor. I cannot substantiate this. Rumor that I heard was that there were ties to organized crime behind it. Don't know if that's true or not. Shortly thereafter, Anthony Weiner decided to open up a price fixing or a price gouging investigation, a Senate price gouging investigation into Goldline, who then very shortly thereafter was caught with hookers and was discredited, and the investigation disappeared. Bottom line is this: if you see them selling stuff on Fox TV, it costs a fortune and somebody's going to pay for it. And I have never, in all the years that I've been in business, heard one good comment about anyone that is promoted on Fox TV. I'll be the first one to tell you there are good companies out there. And there's also bad companies. And all you need to do is Google Goldline complaints, Roslyn Capital complaints, and you'll find enough stuff to keep you ever from wanting to do business with them ever. If it costs that much to generate clients, then it's coming at the expense of a good deal to you. I guess it's the only way I can honestly answer it.
Okay. Come on, it's got a little delay, sorry. So I've got 2 questions for you, Andy. Number one, numismatic coins. We know a lot of these gold dealers out there, they bait you into, oh, we got the best prices on bullion coins. And then when you call them, it's like, you don't want bullion coins. Numismatics, where it's at, man. If you bought, what is it? How do they rate them? 67 coins, St. Gaudens, 5 years ago, they'd be worth so much more now. So that's number one, the bait and switch on numismatics. Is there a place for it in what we're talking about? And number two is, I've had a little experience myself, but traveling with precious metals, best way to do it and how to avoid problems. Do you declare it on your customs? How do you declare it? Because, an ounce of gold, it might be worth 35 bucks or 42 bucks, $42, the way the government accounts for it, right?
My two favorite questions. The second one especially, I think you'll all get a kick out of. But numismatics, we started in 1989. Numismatic is a term that basically says value in and above gold content. It's a collectible for whatever reason. If you buy numismatics, if you buy anything other than old numismatics, you're making a mistake. Anything that's brand new and certified, you're getting ripped off, period. End of story. Is what it is. You're going to buy numismatics, buy pre-1933 US gold coins, and I love them. And there is a place for them. The problem is that they get very expensive. And prior to 2004 or 5, that's all we sold were numismatics, because you could buy an old $20 gold piece that's safe from confiscation and unreportable and all these good things for just a very small premium to gold bullion. When Obama was about to take office, the premium shot up exponentially to levels that I had never seen before. I became Diamond Elite on Delta that year, flying all around the United States, telling everyone as fast as they could, sell your numismatics and go into bullion. Was someone here in the room, I think he's gone. I said to him tonight, that was the smartest decision we ever did. I'm really glad we did it, because if any of you understand what this term means, if you don't, forgive me, a mint state 62 grade $20 Liberty. It's a pre-1907 coin, uncirculated in a relatively decent grade. With $1,000 gold, I was able to give this client $600 premium, 1,600 bucks. I flew to his house in Ohio. I picked up 1,000 coins. I gave him 1,600 gold eagles. It was a home run. It made great sense. With numismatics, the knock against them is the premiums get too high. And when that happens, we make a switch into bullion. Bottom line is, if I had my druthers, I'd only own numismatics, because they're a real part of history. They're cool. They were in someone's pocket 100 years ago. They're neat. But if you're trying to protect yourself, it's about number of ounces that matter. Truth of it is I could do a third the business and make more money selling numismatics than I have to do selling bullion. If I sell my bullion for more than 2%, I'm outpriced. I become uncompetitive. I can sell numismatics at 5-6% and beat everyone in the country. I like numismatics only if you get a good price for them. Let's just leave it at that, but they're cool. And there's no right or wrong answer. I just think you have to identify your motivation. If it's to protect yourself against what's coming, it's bullion. Get as much gold and silver as possible. When you build a hot fudge sundae, it's vanilla ice cream, but there's always room for sprinkles and hot fudge and whatever. So yes, numismatics, but focus on bullion. As far as traveling with gold, I got a kind of a cool story. And this will underscore why you should always have legal tender coins, okay? Not bars, not Krugerrands, which have no face value. If you plan on traveling out of the country, first of all, if you're going anywhere in the United States, it's never a problem. Say you have it in your backpack, okay? Let's say this is a box of coins in my backpack. I take it out of my backpack and I put it here in the tray that goes by the x-ray machine. And as if it's going by, I look at the person and I say, coins, coins. And they'll go, okay. 99% of the time they don't want to see it. They see what it is on the x-ray. If you leave it in your bag and don't tell them it looks like a big black blob and they'll want to see it, pull it out, put the box closed in the tray, and just whisper to the person looking at the x-ray. They'll be cool about it. But I'll tell you a quick story about coming back from Montreal with $300,000 in gold, and why, if any of you leave the country, having this in mind may not be a bad idea. I don't know if any of you will have the guts to pull it off, but I will tell you that I have verified this at various points of entry on several occasions. So I'm very confident what I'm about to tell you is real. So I went to Montreal to see a prospective client, a big one. He was selling a pharmaceutical company, talking big money. And he says to me as the meeting's over, listen, my buddy next door is moving to the United States. Could you help him out? I really didn't want to do what he was about to ask me to do, but this was going to be a very big client, so I said, sure. I'm a vetted traveler, travel a lot. So I met with Homeland Security. I have what's called global entry, which means I can go in and out of customs. I don't wait in that stupid line. I just go right through because they vetted me, right? It's kind of like TSA pre-check on an international scale. So he gave me 240 gold maple leafs to bring back to the United States. A gold maple leaf, like an American Eagle, is a $50 face value coin. Like these guys were saying, the guy who goes and offers a candy bar or a gold maple leaf, it's $50. So and I've seen one of his videos where he says, would you like a $50 bill or this gold coin? And they always say, give me the $50 bill. Anyways, so thinking to myself, okay, well, typically I wouldn't report this but I've never taken more than 10,000 face with me. 240 times 50 is 12,000. So at this point, I better declare it's not my stuff anyway. So I check on the customs form. The question asks you, do you have more than $10,000 in cash or cash instruments with you, right? So I say, yes, I do. When you come back into the United States from Canada, you go through Homeland Security and Customs there. You don't get off the plane in Minneapolis, where I live, and go through Customs. You do it in Montreal or in Vancouver, wherever. There's U.S. Customs agents there. Guy says to me, what do you have, Mr. Schectman? And I said, well, I have 240 one-ounce gold maple leafs. I'm declaring $12,000 as they are $50 face value coins. He says, well, that's way beyond my pay grade. You're going to need to go to further screening. So then he shuts off the light of his booth and walks out, and this is what I call the perp walk. He walks me down this tunnel, hallway that never ended. And the only thing that was missing was the John Williams screecher music in the background. And, you know, they do it to scare you for effect. And I come into a room almost identical to this size, except it's 100% stainless steel and mirrors. Completely. You could do surgery at any point in this room. It's so clean. And he says to me, don't touch your bags, sit down, someone will be with you shortly. I turn around and he's gone. And I'm alone in this giant cavernous room. You know they're looking at me, waiting for me to shove things down my pants. And, you know, it's all done for effect. Then the guy comes out and he stands up at the booth like this for 5 minutes, doesn't look at me. Finally, he lifts up his head and goes like this. And, you know, they're doing this purposely, and his buddies are probably behind the mirrors. Look at that guy, he's freaking out. Well, he says to me, what do you have? I said, I have 241 ounce gold maple leaf coins. I'm declaring $12,000. They're $50 face value coins. See? I show him one. He says, how much is gold today? I said, well, it's about $1,200. This was last June. And he says, okay. Well, isn't that about $300,000? I said, yes, sir, it is. He says, okay, well, we probably need to declare that. And I said, okay, but I said, it's $12,000 because the coin has a $50 face value on it. He says, oh, I see, I'm inclined to believe you. In the meantime, you fill out this FENSEN form, and I'm going to go ask my supervisor. Now, this FENSEN form is something I've never encountered, and you never want to encounter either. I don't know exactly what the acronym stands for, but it's something to the extent of Financial Enforcement Network. And the questions range from how'd you get here? What's the purpose of your trip? Why do you have what you had? How'd you get it? What do you plan on doing with it? And it's very, very invasive form. I was basically thinking someone's going to show up at my house on Monday morning. I was not happy about this at all. So I fill out the form. It's a 2-page form, and I'm standing there waiting for him to come back. And he comes back and he says to me, you know what? You were right. It's legal tender. Those coins that you have are legal tender. Let me see the FENSEN form. And here's your coin back. Thank you. Give him the form. He looks at it. He says, oh, I forgot to ask you, how much money's in your wallet? I said, oh, gosh, here we go. I look, it's about $80. Have any other money you want to tell me about? And I said, no. He says, are you sure? I said, I might have some change in the bottom of my backpack, but that's it. I promise you, I don't have any other money. He says, okay, good. And he takes the fence in for me and he tears it up. He says, you're free to go. Now I said to him, well, that's really cool, thank you, but could you me to look a gift horse in the mouth, can you tell me why I'm free to go? He says, you were right, it is legal tender, we verified it, sorry it took so long. You are entering the United States today with $12,000 Canadian legal tender. Today's conversion rate puts that at $9,400 plus the $80 in your wallet and the change in the bottom of your backpack means you are under $10,000 legal tender, you are free to go. So the moral of the story is for traveling with gold, if you do travel to Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, this applies. I would not try this south of the border or to Asia. The bottom line is if you're going to travel, every gold eagle you have in your pocket's $50. Every maple leaf you have in your pocket's $50. Period. And so for traveling with gold, the key is to be upfront and disclose what you have. Don't hide. And go with the understanding that what you have is money. For some stupid reason, they put face value on all these coins. So the bottom line is if you're dumb enough, you can take a gold eagle and demand Starbucks gives you a cup of coffee with that $50 and pays you cash for the balance. By law, they have to take it. Now, the one thing that I think is kind of neat about this is I wonder how the IRS would feel if you give the $13,000 gift exclusion to your grandchildren or your children in 261-ounce gold eagles. Something to think about. It's $13,000, isn't it? If Homeland Security says it's legal tender and allows you to do it, then why couldn't you give 261-ounce gold eagles to your child and not declare it? Perhaps you can. Bottom line, don't travel with bullion, bars, or non-face value items over 10,000, or you better declare it or they'll take it. And if you have legal tender coins, do not declare it if it's under 10,000 face, but be upfront about showing.
So the moral of the story is Andy didn't have to declare it, but then we wouldn't have heard the story. So we're grateful that he declared it, even though you didn't need to, Andy.
Yes.
All right. So wrapping up. So why don't we hear your question? We'll do a couple more from home after that, and then we'll wrap up. And reminders. So in the lounge here, the bar area. 5 o'clock tomorrow, we'll do a little meetup. We'll have a couple tables set aside, some appetizers, and welcome you all to join us, okay? So your name?
My name is Alan. Just like the armies prepared to fight the last war, I had a question about the 2008 crash. I had a lot of gold mining stocks at that time, and well, there was I guess you could call it rapid deflation of the price of gold and gold stocks. I think it was down 85%. Not too long. So do you find in these kind of crashes, maybe the one we might have in the future, that there's a rapid deflation over a period of X months and then moving to a higher price on that scenario?
So I just want to answer that, and then I'm going to pass it on to Andy.
Let me just repeat the question.
Oh, sure.
So the question was in 2008, after the crash, rapid deflation of mining prices, something around 80–90%. And what we can look forward to basically in the future.
Every time we see the paper price manipulated down, they crush the mining shares. Remember what happened when they dropped the price down in 08? Everything disappeared. Fundamentals were screaming, buy gold and silver. The world is going to hell in a handbasket. The banks are failing. The money markets are going, bust. We need to own gold and silver. Well, that's the canary in the mine shafts that they have to kick and step on and crush. And that's exactly what they did. You can't kick the canary and let the canary's mining shares go up too. So I would argue that the mining shares were manipulated down just as much as the gold was because it's part of the bigger problem. As a caveat, okay, I'm going to pass this over to Andy. Andy is not a mining share fan. So one of the nice things about, and maybe that's not fair to say that, okay, I'll let him explain, I won't speak for him, but one of the things that Andy and I have in common is that most everything we do, we believe in together. I believe there is room for mining shares in your portfolio, a small percentage. I'll give you an example. I bought First Majestic 3 months ago, January. It's tripled. It's gone from $3.30 to $10 or 9.5. 3 months ago. There's room for it. It should never take the place of your gold holdings, but in 08, I would argue it was a contrived depression, a contrived drop down in the price of mining shares. And now they've been beaten down so much, there is room for it. A 10% allocation to a mining share portfolio could very easily outperform 90% in physicals. That's my opinion. So now you can hear the other side of the story.
Right. Look, I really hate that word deflation. Okay, deflation is not possible in a fiat currency regime. And what you saw, because it's a Ponzi scheme which must grow larger, and you saw in 2008 where the powers that be, for a brief second, were taken off guard when things went down, and for a couple of months they didn't know what to do before they started the money printing brigade. And as Andy said, of course the number one thing that they had to do was push gold and silver prices down. And with it, the mining shares, because again, the mining shares, not only are they easily manipulatable because you can short sell them, but also the mining shares have to take the paper price for what they sell. They can't say, hey, look, the real silver price is $20, but the paper price is 10. No, they have to sell it at 10. So of course it impacted them, and it's a leveraged investment on precious metals. They are not precious metals, they are leveraged investments on precious metals. So the first part of your question is what will happen now? Well, look, in 2008, what happened was the real price of gold never went down. The real price of silver never went down. If you held physical gold and silver and watched the prices on paper go down, you knew very well that if you called Andy, he would buy it at twice the price, your silver, and gold at 30% more, because the prices never went down. So again, when you're talking about a market crash, everything is fair game. And so there's a difference between owning real assets and owning paper derivatives. Now, what will happen going forward? I don't know what will happen going forward. I know that if there's any crash in the world, and the world is far more delicate than it is, I mean, God, the U.S. national debt was half of what it was in 2008. So if you have any kind of crash, which means the powers that be have lost control of financial markets, there's going to be no coming back from it this time. There's going to be no, they'll try QE5 and 6 and 7, it won't work. They'll try negative 10% interest rate. It won't work. So the next time around will be a far different animal. And there's no way they'll be able to suppress prices now that you have, that the global demand for silver is now almost 3 times what it was in 2008 when we ran out of supply. How much demand would we have if we had a crash now when we already have record demand? So, what's coming ahead is going to be a currency crisis, not a financial market crisis. So that's another story. What will happen to mining shares? I don't know. And, Andy says, to be fair, I'm against mining shares, but to be fair, give my side. Look, I have never said don't own mining shares. I've never said sell them, short them. I have simply said I owned them for many, many years. From 2002 until 2011, they were pretty much, until 2008, they were pretty much my entire portfolio. And up until 2011, they were more than half of my portfolio. And I also worked in the mining industry for 5 years, having gone to mines, having dealt with mining companies, with bankers, all that stuff. And I determined after that experience that I didn't want anymore. I didn't want the risk, the loss of sleep that it gave me. There were plenty of ups and plenty of downs, and frankly, more downs than ups. But that's, like Andy said, you can put it in your portfolio. There's nothing wrong with it. They've been great lately. If gold prices soar, maybe they will finally do what they were supposed to do, which is become internet stocks. Or maybe they'll go to zero. There's all kinds of risks. But again, it's your choice of what you want to do with your money. But remember, only physical gold and silver is actual money. Everything else is a speculative investment. And, for me, what will happen going forward? I don't know what will happen to anything other than that the value of physical precious metals, particularly at these historically suppressed prices, will go up. I don't know if mining shares will go up or down, stocks, bonds, real estate. I know physical gold and silver will go up in value. That's all I know.
And just like to add, we take select mining companies as sponsors on the show, all fully disclosed, which I think is important. So yeah, they're speculative investments. They're complicated businesses. They're risky as all hell. Because you've got governmental risk, then you got management risk, then you got the risk that all these fancy reports that they produce aren't going to be true. So if you're going to invest in them, look for companies with very seasoned managements with a record of success in their previous undertakings. You know, I don't ever recommend a stock. Somebody asked a question, said you recommended this stock at 2 something and it's 7.5 now. I don't know who that was. I always give the proviso on the show. If you listen to any investment advice I give you, you will definitely lose money. So, and hey, it's been effective. Nobody sued me yet. It's really hard to go into court when somebody told you that they were going to lose money if they listened to you, and you listened to them and you lost money. What's your gripe? They told you. So, but I said at least I qualify at least in the short run. So in the long run, like I say, but mining is such an important industry. You know, yeah, it's going through a lot of gyrations. It's boom or bust in precious metals. We've seen it over and over and over again. But unless they're going to stop producing this stuff, then somebody is going to mine it. All right? And then you're just betting whether their business plan and their risks are going to work or not. It's just like any other company. And let's not forget, in a general market decline, you know, just like a rising tide lifts all boats, a tsunami will destroy all the boats as well. So that's what you have to be aware of and act accordingly. Hey, who would have thought that the Dow Jones Propaganda Index could go on all this time and hit a record, but it hasn't made a new record in a year. Will it make a record and then crash? Yeah, I'd say if it hits that new record. So stocks are stocks, hard assets are hard assets. Putting all your eggs in one basket, we've seen a lot of people get injured by that. So a little, you know, thought in how you're going to do it is really important. So don't ask me for any recommendations.
And by the way, there will be an upcoming article called "The Rising Tsunami Destroys All Boats." I guarantee it.
Hey, we're all about the headlines on Financial Survival Network, because I know whether you listen to a show or not has absolutely nothing to do with what's in it. Yeah, the guest is important, but if the headline sucks, you're just going to go right by it and go to the next one. So headlines, you know, Rupert Murdoch built an empire on headlines with no substance. We try to give you a little substance too. And I think we are going to wrap up. Does anybody else here have a question? Are we totally exhausted? Okay, don't bother going to the mic. Just ask the question. I'll repeat it.
What do you think about the idea of silver eventually becoming extinct or near extinct?
Okay, so the question for Andy Schectman is, what do you think about the possibility of silver becoming extinct or nearly extinct? I kind of alluded to that before, but...
Well, actually, are you talking about silver the element or silver bullion?
Oh, silver the element itself.
Well, there's a governmental agency.
Itself.
There's a governmental agency, the U.S. Geological Survey Group, said that they believed it would be the first element stricken from the periodic table of elements. It's that short. I think a good way of describing it is basically this, that anything that conducts electricity, anything that you've ever touched that conducts electricity, going back to the time you were a little boy, first black and white TV you ever turned on, the first hairdryer you ever used, the first calculator, first Walkman, the first light switch you ever turned. Where is all that stuff right now? In the landfill. That's right. And so because silver is used in everything over the last 80 years roughly that conducts electricity, and because it's used in such tiny amounts, like 1 ounce of silver is good for a couple hundred iPhones, right? Doesn't make sense to go into a landfill with a pickaxe and pull out 1/8 of an ounce of silver off of the motherboard of an old TV. All of that silver is gone forever, never to be recaptured. Most of the low-lying fruit has been picked. Will it ever become extinct? I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with why J.P. Morgan has amassed over almost a half a billion ounces of physical silver in their house account. Maybe they see something along those lines where silver will become very, very, very hard to get. I had a discussion with I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, so I'm not going to mention any names, but
the president of a big silver company. I was just at a conference in San Diego last week. And he said to me, this has never happened to him either. He said he just got a phone call from Mitsubishi, who wants to come and buy every ounce of silver production they have. Just told that. And they're coming out to look at it. He says he doesn't know what to expect. But I think, you know, it's what do they call it? Inelastic. You need it. And corporations need it for whatever they're making at any cost. And there will come a time where if it becomes evident that it's becoming really, 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 really hard to get, where they'll make one final push, and yes, it could become impossible to get. Will it disappear, become obsolete? I don't know, but I think we're already heading that way if you just kind of look between the lines.
So is there a horizon timeline?
Well, when
I
this,
heard about the year 2020, but I don't believe.
you know, when this guy says to me he's been in the mining industry for 35 years and never has a company like that called and said anything to him, when Ted Butler, who I don't think is an asshole, when he says that 500 million ounces of silver was accumulated by JP Morgan as the price has been dropping under the cover of darkness, to me these are all symptoms of that maybe happening. And I think why, in order to succeed in investing or to really succeed in anything in life, you have to do it proactively. You have to step out on the limb. You have to trust your gut and intuition and take a chance and do it before it becomes so obvious that the iceberg is right here and you're about to hit. Your life raft has to be blown up long before. And I would say to you, the likelihood of silver becoming really, let me put it to you this way. Geologically speaking, gold is many times more scarce than silver, more rare than silver. 15.5 times exactly, actually, geologically. But there are many people who would tell you that above ground supply, silver is far more scarce than gold right now. We're heading in that direction. Here again, where there's smoke, there's fire. Someday down the road, you'll say, damn it, I knew it. I asked that question. Why didn't I load up on it? Don't second guess yourself. Trust the inner voice. We're all blessed with good intuition. What separates the winners from the losers are those that listen to their inner voice and act upon it. And if you're wrong, it's your fault and your fault only. And if you're right, it's really sweet. And everything I've ever done in my life has been that way. I sold my IRA at the peak. I was 39 years old. It was a $700,000 IRA. I sold it. I paid a $70,000 penalty and $250,000 in taxes. Why? Because Congress debated taking IRAs in 2009. Everyone called me an idiot. I sold a house that I just built in 2006. 1 year after we built it, almost got divorced. My wife was ready to kill me because they're building houses in the same neighborhood, much bigger, same school district for $100,000 less. I said, we're moving. And I put a sign in the yard and we moved. And I put all my money into silver at $8, and everyone called me an idiot. Everybody. And I sold it at almost 4 times what I bought the silver for and built my dream house. You must be accountable. You must be accountable for your actions. We're accountable for our behavior and our actions from the time we're little children until the time we die. The most important thing to be accountable for is your retirement, your finances, your future. Trust your gut is your best financial advisor. We are so far adrift in a sea of uncharted nonsense that there is no wrong answer. It's whatever makes you feel like you're accomplishing something. And if you feel that silver may actually disappear, well, who says you're wrong? I'd say there's probably a good chance you're right. So do something about it.
All right, so I think we're going to conclude now. Anyway, like I said, 5 o'clock tomorrow here. Anybody wants a copy of the book, Forget Wall Street, go for the gold and silver too. You'll see a lot of the things that we talked about in there are coming true right now. And hey, I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you to Andy Hoffman. It's always a lively evening.
One more comment.
And yeah, it's going to let me
Thank you.
wrap up here.
Yes, and again, thank you so much, Kerry, Melissa, and everyone who came here. It was another great event, everyone who's out there on the internet. But again, remember, we don't just do these events once in a while to answer questions. My job as marketing director is to answer questions Andy's job as the president of our company is to answer questions, and as are all of the brokers within our company, who on average have 25 years of experience. So please, we have the email, we have the phone. Just give us a call, send us a message. We'll always answer your questions.
Where we are heading, relationships will mean everything, and I do really, really, really mean that. You want to call someone in a panic moment and say, please hook me up, take care of me. And that's how we build our business. You call, you say, take care of me. I say, done. Joel says, done. Bob says, done. Mike says, done. Kathy says, done. Andy says, I'll email Andy right now. Done. And it's done. And that's what makes us different than the online retailers. So give us a shot. We do have a new website that I keep telling everyone it's almost done, but it's really almost done. I have finally acquiesced.
I have one of those too.
Yes, we will have the ability to buy online small orders. I really don't want to do that, but I guess I have to, because to me, it's about trust. It's about a relationship and a friendship, and that's more important in the scheme of things. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. We'd love the opportunity to work with you. Give us a shot. You got nothing to lose except your money when you buy from someone else. So thank you very, very, very much, and we'll talk to you all soon.
And Andy plans to spend his retirement as a free man, not as a perpetual guest of the federal correctional system, like so many of his competitors.
I would really not do well in prison.
No, he can't do the time, so he's not going to do the crime. Thank you all. It's really been great, and we'll see you again at a future event.
Kerry, thank you, brother.
Hey, man. Appreciate it.
Yes, great, my friend. Yes.
Great to see you again.
Yes.
You probably don't remember.
Is this done?
Well, I was gonna.
Yeah, and I've been there many times.
I just-
Yeah, I think I've been there times, and I just think
Yes, Parker's nice.
Yeah.
Nice and
I always think of you, but I never call.
That's right.
You don't need it for them? I mean, you don't need this for
Yeah, well, we have to homework.
What else do you have for the batteries?
Great to see you. I probably Kerry, thank you very much.
Hey, it was great to see you again.
Sorry.
That's what I was getting at.
Monday or last Friday.
Well,
Can I take?
Yeah, let's take
I
that.
gotta charge my phone.
Yeah, you might, yeah, take the cable. Take this too.
2000 was the bottom.
I'll hold on to this.
I'll take the, you're keeping the money?
Take this down.
But again,
Leave it in the
2008,
bag.
the physical price didn't go down. When it went from 21 to 9, the physical price was around 20. We ran out of supply. And when we finally were able to buy, to apply for mid-section,
It's just you and the book? Yeah.
Anyone needs my business card,
But it was a high
telephone numbers.
Actually, so it never, if you owned SOB, when you paid for investment, you lost that. I didn't have any gold, so
New Times are one of those. So when you get home, Google, you call this and say deposit items.
Mhm.
See you tomorrow.
All right, great.
Because they.
That was 3 years ago.
Yeah, well.
I mean, you're right, the 9R vaults.
You know, I mean, you're gonna have to risk something somewhere if it's not on your person at all times. As I say, diversify. I know people have been robbed there, some of them got killed in different malls, they disappeared. She went there.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know where it is, but he was here to
I think you find that article.
All right, guys, we're shutting down. Thank you so much for being on with us. I mean, so many of you stayed on the whole night. And hey, wait for the next one. Thanks so much.